Are we live?
I did something wrong.
What did you do, Jen?
I don't know, but like my background is black, so I was clicking some buttons.
You're not supposed to mess with the stuff when we're loading up.
I don't know why. Okay, anyway, so we're live.
I'll try and.
Are we
I'm
live?
not sure what happened.
Yeah, apparently we are.
Yeah, we are.
Colin, you remember the last show that we did, we had like a blue banner going across the bottom for some
Well,
reason.
mine's all wrong now. There it is. Mine was black until just now.
Yeah, you're like a child. You're not to touch the stuff.
But something is awry.
There we go.
With my system. All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome. Welcome.
What an intro.
Hello, everyone. Welcome. It is Monday night, Generational Change. I'm Jen.
I'm Peter, I think. And yeah,
Who's pushing some buttons.
Yeah, Jen like a child, like hitting all the buttons on the elevator.
I am not a boomer, Travers. I'm Gen X.
She's all.
And I'm having technical difficulties.
Yes, and we are always. Well, that's the trick of doing a live show, is that you just don't know. It's interesting because when we came live, because I was like out of the picture for a second, I'm thinking, okay, I
thought maybe it was just happening on my computer because I also wasn't seeing the video. The only reason I even knew the countdown was happening is on my phone. That's what I'm saying. I'm not seeing, something is wrong between, I think StreamYard and Chrome don't like each other.
StreamYard and Chrome, no, Google Chrome is fun. I thought you were going to say Safari for a second, but you can't have that because you don't have a...
Don't even say the word. We don't do that in this family.
From geriatric Joe to genocide Joe to cancer Joe to dying.
We will get into that, right?
Yeah.
Like we're going to talk about it because I have some thoughts on people that are complicit.
Yeah. So for those of you who saw our good friends over at Status Coup, Zaina interviewed Abby Martin, and Abby Martin basically broke down about the fact that there are just so many, surprisingly enough to her, how many genocidal people there actually are out there in the world that take almost like pleasure in a way in seeing the decimation of, let's say, the Palestinian people, which is a tragedy within itself. But
is she referring to like Israelis? Like who is she referring to? Because the majority of people in the world are not with what's happening.
No, but I think because Abby has surrounded herself with a lot of the people that are a part of that ideology, it becomes very difficult to get sucked into it. And so I can understand, and you know, Debbie wants you to know that she's watching. So behave yourself, Jen. Otherwise, she might pick some people after you. And I have to say, if there is a person who was as adamant as anybody that Joe Biden was perfectly normal, had no problems, was sharp.
Nothing to see here, folks.
Nothing to see here. Debbie Wasserman Schultz, we will show you, was as front and center in support of Genocide Joe. And I can't say that I am surprised in any way, nor should any of you guys be. But we do have a lot to cover this evening. The one thing that I did want to point out, which I thought was important, and I know that you obviously wanted to discuss, is of course these students at colleges who are making it a point to not run away from fighting for this cause, even if it comes with great economic risk, which is essentially what the Zionist movement has used as a way to deal with dissenting voices against their genocidal project. But there are students that are out there that have made it a point to step up and say, no, we are not on board with this. We will not stand idly by as you continue to perpetuate this in our names. Remember, first genocide ever broadcast live. That's basically what's happening. So here's an example of one student at, I believe, GW, who spoke out against the genocide in Gaza.
For a year, we have watched a genocide be committed against Palestinians. I cannot celebrate my own graduation without a heavy heart, knowing how many students in Palestine have been forced to stop their studies, expelled from their homes, and killed for simply remaining in the country of their ancestors. The horrors unfolding halfway across the world may be easy to ignore for those lacking a moral backbone. For the rest of us, these atrocities cause us to take stock in our own complacency in the imperialist system. I am ashamed to know my tuition is being used to fund genocide. I'm going to say that again. I am ashamed to know my tuition is being used to fund this genocide. Every year, the cost of attending this university increases without a corresponding improvement in the facilities and resources provided to students, staff, and faculty. Instead, our money is put into the pockets of those who unequivocally prove time and time again they do not care about the students and faculty that create this university's prestigious university.
This is, by the way, her name is Cecilia Culver. Cecilia.
Colin, please check your phone. She's one of many. She's not alone. There are plenty of students that are out there that are.
I sent him the one that's Logan. Logan Rozos? Oh, God, what was his name?
Rojas, maybe?
No, it's not Rojas. Rozos. Logan Rozos.
Logan. Okay. Well, I had just
That's
sent
the kid from NYU. Yeah, I saw somebody saying that, yeah, her hands were shaking. Her hands were shaking. He was scared to death, and they did it anyway. That's courage. That's the courage, is that they were both terrified. And I don't know about the GW. I'm going to assume it was the same, that he had to have his speech approved. And so he submitted whatever he submitted for approval and then just said what he wanted to say. That's balls. That's balls. And I got to say, when I was that age, I don't know that I would have done that.
Well, remember, so much of the dissent that comes not from the students, but what's coming from the faculty in these major universities is that their endowments are being funded predominantly by those who are in favor of the Zionist state. And so as a result, they just tell them, if you do not get on board with what we want you to do, we will pull funding. That's it. It's that simple.
I'm freaking out a lot about this speech, honestly. And as I search my heart today in addressing you all, my moral and political commitments guide me to say that the only thing that is appropriate to say in this time and to a group this large is a recognition of the atrocities currently happening in Palestine. I want to say that the genocide currently occurring is supported politically and militarily by the United States, is paid for by our tax dollars, and has been live streamed to our phones for the past 18 months, and that I do not wish to speak only to my own politics today, but to speak for all people of conscience, all people who feel the moral injury of this atrocity.
I love that. I love that.
And I want to say that I condemn this genocide and complicity in this genocide. Thank you to the class of 22.
All people who have suffered a moral injury, because that's what it feels like for me. Is like, I can only say, like, it's constant. It's constant, this feeling. And yet I know I don't even feel anything compared to the people that are actually going through it. But the way that he described it is, yeah, I feel like I'm walking around morally injured.
Yeah, and even at a school like this, you could still hear the faint boos in the
There were
background.
a few. In both of those schools, there were a few, but they were not the louder people. And
No.
these kids are awesome. So that's Logan and Cecilia, and they're holding up his degree right now. Now, whether or not they're able to really do that, or it's just for
On what grounds? You're hurting our financial.
He violated school policy. You know, the speech that he had submitted for approval wasn't whatever it is. They'll come up with their thing. But those kids, those are the people that I want to be working with. Those are the kids that, like, these are who we want to be producing. I hope their parents are very proud. Like, I'm that to me is very pleasing.
Speaking of people that we would like to work with, Jay Befaunt was right. And of course, he is here from RBN for the first time and hopefully not the last time. Welcome to Generational Change.
Thank you so very much for having me. It's good to be with you both.
Hi, it's nice to meet you. I don't think we've ever really met face to face. It's nice to meet you. How are you doing? Because, like, really, I've been following your health thing a little bit on social media, and I know you had it. Did you have a kidney transplant? Is that what it was? That's a big deal. Like yeah. How are you?
I'm doing well, actually. Better than I expected, because the kidney transplant took place on April 12th, which you can say is kind of like a second birthday, right? And so having that, it is a surreal experience. I just want to give a huge shout out to all the medical staff at Tampa General Hospital. They're one of the #1 transplant hospitals in the United States, and they have done an amazing job with them and the University of South Florida as well, in partnership with them. And so they were able to not only help me throughout this process, but they were some of the kindest, most compassionate people that you would want to be in a hospital with. So they were just, they went above and beyond my expectations.
Isn't that nice? The only time the time that I think people have that, for women anyway, that I've met, are always your labor and delivery nurses. Like, they're so good to you. And then you leave and it's like, you know, you have to get them like a fruit basket. Like, and it isn't just because they do their job. It's because these are people that are so underpaid and yet do what they do. And yeah, I know what that, I've had a good hospital experience wherein, but I appreciate it.
And to add to your point, this was the first time I've ever heard congratulations at a hospital as being a patient. Like, it's like, so I realized there's two times when you get a congratulations, either when you get either a transplant or you beat cancer, or you have a baby.
Right.
That's the times where you get, congratulations in a hospital. And the fact is, it's crazy. I had so many moments where I were brought to tears in that moment. And it was just tears of gratitude and tears of joy. I mean, the minute I woke up from the surgery, I started crying because I realized that I didn't see a bright light. I just woke up in a dark room and the nurse was right there. And it was an amazing feeling.
That's really nice.
It's unfortunate that we have to share these stories because we should have a single payer healthcare system.
I mean, yeah.
And if we did, Jen and I did what we could to obviously help spread the word and, chip in what we could. But it is a tragedy of such epic proportions that we have gotten to this point where we have to talk about the idea that people need to go bankrupt in order to pay for their health care.
Yeah.
Is a tragedy of proportions that I hope will finally start to wake up people. But the one thing that we've learned in this country is that very often people don't react to substantial problems until it directly affects them. When it becomes their problem, then it's everybody, everybody is supposed to pay attention. So what do you see as being our best path forward? Because clearly it's not going to be through electoral politics. We are not going to vote in universal health care. That's not how it's going to happen. It's going to require a lot of effort on the outside. So what would you like to see in terms of furthering the efforts so that way the next person who has to go on dialysis doesn't have to go through what you had to go through?
One of the best ways I think that we can do that is I am a student and I'm a proponent of what the Black Panther Party did. One of the things that they did was huge. It was mutual aid. The mutual aid that they did actually woke people up to the material conditions that they were lacking. And through that, they also taught them, that, number one, you have the power to change your situation collectively instead of depending on these politicians, because these politicians are corporate captured, right? And so because of that, there's no way that we can recapture them back, because you need to have the money and the power in order to be able to do it. We may not have the money and the power, but we definitely have the numbers, right? And so doing things like mutual aid, and a lot of times people will go, well, what is mutual aid? Is it charity? Mutual aid is not charity. Mutual aid is basically giving of your time, your energy, your resources without expecting anything back, right? There's no institutional backing for it. And what you're doing is you're making sure that your community is good, but at the same time, you're also teaching your community and coming together with them in order to show them this is the way forward, right? And it does not have to be through electoral politics. It could be through outside pressure in order to circumvent the system, right? And once you circumvent that system, for instance, look what the Black Panther Party did. Everybody knows about the free breakfast program, but a lot of people don't know about the ambulance program they did. A lot of people don't know about the free plumbing programs that they did. They did testing for sickle cell anemia. They did acupuncture, right? They did community public safety, because we knew that the police officers weren't going to be doing it. And so they did all these different things. Then it caught the attention of groups like the Young Lords and the Young Patriots, which were the Young Patriots were a more left-wing white group. The Young Lords were predominantly a Puerto Rican group, and they were doing the same things. And so they all came together and formed what they called the Rainbow Coalition. With that being said, that's what made them dangerous to the United States government. It's the fact that they were actually helping people. It wasn't the fact that they actually were exercising their Second Amendment rights, so obviously. It was the fact that they were actually circumventing the system. And I think that we have to be brave enough to be dangerous in a helpful way. Meaning, are we helping out our fellow neighbors? Do you know your neighbors' names? Do you know their names? Do you know, like, for instance, my colleague and comrade Sabi Sab, she was on Jamarl Thomas earlier this morning. She said, do you know the names of your city council members or your county commissioners? Do you know their names?
That I know. And not in a good way.
Yeah. I mean, you're in Miami, right? You're in Miami-Dade.
Fort Lauderdale area. I'm Broward.
Oh, you're Broward? Okay. But the thing is like, you get a lot of people, especially you get a lot of the Democrats who are beholden to big money and the real estate powers, things like that. So you see where they're geared towards. Look, we've had the same mayor for 22 years here in Orlando, Buddy Dyer. And so what has really changed, right? What has changed for those of us who are in the most depressed districts or depressed zip codes within our city?
Where in Orlando are you? I'm sorry. Where in Orlando are you? What part are you in?
I'm near downtown.
Okay, like, because the place that I always go is just northeast of downtown. Gideon's Bakehouse, just northeast of downtown. Anyway, continue. I hear Orlando, I think cookies, because if I'm driving by, I got to stop and get the cookies. Do you not know of Gideon's?
I'm sorry?
You don't know of Gideon's?
Gideon's? I ain't that rich. No. I'm sorry.
This is a cookie shop that is.
It's a cookie place
it's in like one of those like bodega type style.
It's just really good cookies. It's just really good cookies.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
You might have to DM me some information about that.
It's special. Like, it's special. And especially if you can go on a Wednesday, because that's the day that they have the candied walnut ones, which are really exceptional. Otherwise, you have to pre-order those. So it's a thing. But it's very special. That's why I'm asking you.
Jen, don't threaten me with a good time.
All right. Well, here's what I wanted to say to you. You explained that very eloquently, where I've just been saying we need to Black Panther this shit. So my thought is, like, you said it, but I'm just like, this is what we're doing. So a la what they've done with cop cities, right? Like, they're all over the country, wherever they are. I don't know all their different locations, but we need to set up compounds in that vein that are also completely legal, a la Black Panthers, but armed. And things that need to be taught, and places where people can go and be safe and have retreat. And it's like, that's where you educate your people, because we're all over the place. Literally and figuratively, all over the place. So I feel like, how do you consolidate? You have compounds that are consolidated, because eventually that's where the aid comes from. You're not going to we have to cross-pollinate outside of neighborhoods.
That's true. In fact, to add to your point, there is a wonderful organization that I collaborate with often here in Orlando. It's called Real Orlando. Real is an acronym for Revolutionary Education Action League, and they actually operate here in Orlando. They are a mutual aid group. They also have their own farm, which is called the People's Freedom Farm. And they actually grow the food, and then that same food that they grow, they deliver it to the unhoused within the Orlando area in my own neighborhood, right? They do solidarity hubs every third Wednesday of the month, and where they not only give out food, they do haircuts, styling. They hand out toiletries, clothes, shoes, all these different things for people within the area, in one of the most depressed areas in Orlando, which is the 32805 zip code. And so they do this day in, day out. They also deliver to the unhoused. That's right near our soccer stadium, not too far from the Camping World Stadium area there. They do all this, and it's all mutual aid. And so, organizations like that, which they're also trying to fundraise for their own headquarters, so that they can have a central hub. And so that other groups, like for instance, the Pro-Palestine network, they also partner with the PSL, all these different groups they partner with as well. And so they can use that to be able to disseminate more information, as well as more mutual aid out from a central location. So they're doing that. And so, I just want to say that there are groups that are already doing what you're recommending. And I think it's beautiful, the fact that you said, okay, we need to do this. And then there's another group going, we're already doing it. So I think that's awesome.
Well, and I'm personally, in my personal life, I'm working towards that, like actually buying property and having a space, and like I'm actually trying to work, and I also want to get out of here and be somewhere, like, there's just too many people here. I'm in Broward County. There's just too many people. I can't it's just too, and there's way too many.
Don't kid yourself. There's too many people in Orange County as well. We've got a lot of this and I think a lot of the over concentration of population in so many areas just has to do with again, just another example of the failures of the capitalist system, where, people feel that they have to be in the I-4 corridor in terms of economic opportunity. And so much of that is extremely corporatized. I mean, if anybody's been to Disney in, just recent times, it's absolute lunacy what they charge and what they are able to get away with, to the point where you're just asking yourself, when are people as a collective finally going to snap? Because you got to think at some point, this has just gone on for way too long, and it's gotten way too far.
I think people are going.
I'm there.
I hate to put it this way.
I crossed over onto the I'm never coming back. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I'm too far gone now. That's where I'm at. Like, I'm off the other side now.
Yeah, and that's fair. When people, what's going to take for people to snap?
Well, now that you asked, I actually think I have an example of where I think is the snap is going to come from. As much as I want it to come from Israel-Palestine, I don't think it's going to come from that, simply because, as I mentioned, in America, it's only about what you can directly feel and touch. Unfortunately, it's that way. But here's something that I think is kind of giving away the game, where I do think that's what's going to happen, and leave it to Speaker of the House Mike Johnson to say the quiet part out loud.
Well, look, the salary of Congress has been frozen since 2009. When you adjust for inflation, a member of Congress today is making 31% less than they made in that year. It goes down every year. And over time, if you stay on this trajectory, you're going to have less qualified people who are willing to make the extreme sacrifice to run for Congress. I mean, it's just people just make a reasonable decision as a family on whether or not they can come and move to Washington, have a residence here, a residence at home, and do all the things that are required. So the counter argument is, and I have some sympathy, look, at least let them engage in some stock trading.
I mean, come on.
You can't make this shit up. Honestly, this is why I feel bad for the Onion. I really do. R.I.P. Onion. You can't make this shit up. I don't even know where to go with
Let's
that.
just let them do a little bit of insider trading. We don't have to let them do all of it. Just a little bit, Does anybody in the chat know? Because Jen, I don't believe that... I don't believe that stock law was your background, but I would like to know what the federal penalty is for committing insider trading.
Look, all I know is if I were Martha Stewart, I'd be coming after all these people, with a vengeance. I'd be poisoning their food and catering their parties.
But doesn't it also go to show in the time that has changed over the past 15 plus years? I don't remember what year it was exactly. I want to. It's actually no. It's probably closer to 20 years.
Oh my God! These people
was involved with that insider trading scandal. It was the biggest deal in the world, and now today it's like who even reacts to it? They're like, oh yeah, they're doing some insider trading. It's
so what? They don't make much for the sacrifice. They haven't had a raise since 2009. Get the fuck out of here. Who has?
Wait,
right? Jay, are you flabbergasted?
I know that Dollar Tree Stephen Colbert did not just say that shit.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
We haven't had a raise since 2009.
You mean, oh gosh, these people make me itch. Okay, so here's the I don't even know how to. You know how you have a really big burger and you're trying to find out the right angle to take a bite at it? That's how it feels right now. Sorry, I'm hungry. But here's the thing, right? He's saying that we just want to do just a little bit of corruption, just a little bit. We ain't got to do a whole lot of corruption. We just got to do.
It wasn't even a slip of the tongue. It wasn't.
It's the equivalent of that, right? And my goodness, why isn't this guy? Why are people? Look, I am not promoting anything violent, but I'm like, if January 6th were to happen right now, this would be the reason why.
I don't promote violence either. However, it's funny when you were talking before. So I'm almost done listening to Revolutionary Suicide. And so I'm sitting here and I'm thinking okay, I don't condone violence, but I recognize that it's an inevitability, especially when you suppress all other avenues for people to have a life of dignity. So that's what you're going to get. But this guy standing here, but to me, it's the best that he was essentially crying poor He was essentially crying poor that these people have to sacrifice so much and they make so little that therefore that justifies them making a little extra. If that does not make people want to go set shit on fire or go stand outside this guy's house with pots and pans at all hours of the night so that he doesn't get a moment's peace, I don't know what will. Like, that's insane.
Like, hold up. It's like Mike Johnson's like, oh, well, our salaries are, we haven't made as much. We haven't had a raise since 2009. I'm gonna be like, oh, you haven't had a raise since 2009. And my thing is like, you and your $170,000 a year salary, you're talking about, oh, I haven't had a raise. And yet you literally have not raised the federal minimum wage from $7.25 an hour since George W. Bush, because even though it happened under Obama, it was passed by George W. Bush.
Yep.
So cry me a river.
This is so great. This is gonna. All right, finish.
Let's play it one more time in case anybody needs to hear it a second.
And as a family, on whether or not they can come and move to Washington, have a residence here, residence at home, and do all the things that are required. So the counter argument is, and I have some sympathy. Look, at least let them engage in some stock trading so that they can continue to take care of their family.
Okay, so in other words, let's let people continue doing other things like selling drugs. Why don't we let them sell drugs on the street? Because that's how they support their families. But I bet he wouldn't be with that. Right? Like, who says that? Like, oh, well, we need to let them continue doing it to take care of their families because they don't make enough money for a job that, quite honestly, you shouldn't even be paid for that. You should get a stipend to live in D.C. during session. That should be a public service job on a rotation. Kind of like jury duty, but people have to actually want to do it.
Well,
if y'all want to continue to do corruption, all right, fine. Let Steny Hoyer turn some tricks, all right?
I mean, at some point we have to ask ourselves, they're literally smacking you in the face and calling you a bitch because you won't fight back. Like, that's kind of what they're doing. They're basically saying, what more do we have to do? Piss in your mouth and call it rain? Like, I don't understand how anyone can listen to this and not say, I don't trust this system. I don't believe in this system anymore. How could I possibly? They're telling you that they trade on inside information, and what the hell are you going to do about it?
Nothing.
Jen, I got to tell you, if I had known that you guys were going to play that clip, I would have put some liquor inside this tea. I'm telling you right now.
I get myself very toasty before I come on, and then I always pack a bowl for a little bit later because there is certain stuff that I am just. Here's the thing, and I don't know if it's because I refuse to get a medicinal card and pay the state for my ability to smoke cannabis. Like, I reject that completely. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if it's just cannabis I get is not as high as the medicinal quality, but there are days when I cannot get high enough. That is how I feel. Like, there is not enough weed.
I also think people get addicted to the life. I think I have always maintained that when I saw AOC make her shift, I said, oh, she's just captured by the life. Like, she's really into being a celebrity and being a woman about town and things like that. And the second they come to you with, but if you get out of line, all those things will go away. And then they justify, they rationalize it in their mind. Well, if I'm not doing it, somebody else will be doing it. And I guess I should just go along to get along. It's like, no, that's not how this works. And that's not acceptable. And talk about just stepping on people who moved heaven and earth to help you. And that happens a lot,
But Peter, hang on. That's like that Zionist going, well, if I don't steal your house, somebody else is going to steal your house.
That guy? Oh, yeah.
I love. We all know we all know exactly. But there are many of those guys. But yeah, that guy.
Yes, but he fits that category. It's funny you bring that up because I've brought this up on the show, and I don't know how often you watch us, but there is a guy who lives in South Florida in particular. I'm not going to say his name; it doesn't matter because he's one of many. But Jen knows who I'm talking about, and he is somebody who walks around with the dog tag,
Oh.
Yisrael High and all that. And we were at
Basically, Peter wants to beat him up. Like
Oh,
he
I do.
almost,
Well,
it's
I'm-
almost like middle school. You want to start like you are just waiting. You almost want him to start with you because you want to beat the shit out of him.
Well, it's not just that. I feel like if I do, I'll probably put him in the hospital. So, I would hurt him, and I would try to hurt him as badly as.
You sound very violent.
And the reason
is there any money we can bet on this? And I'll put my money on Peter.
And well, if you saw this guy, you would probably even double that. But it's pathetic. Like these people are pathetic.
And he's not. And here's the thing: it's not. I'm picking on somebody who's even a little bigger than I am. I mean, I don't pick on pipsqueaks, and there's plenty of them out there.
No, he's not little, but he's still a pussy.
Yeah, no, he's a swarmy little fuck. And at the end of the day, I guess his significant other put out an Instagram post that tagged him. So I saw it. And they were at some Miami Beach gala event. And all I'm thinking to myself is they are so captured in their bubble that they live in. And this is a guy who has been Am Yisrael High forever, anti-Palestine, pro-Israel, the whole 9 yards, waving the Israel flag. And there is no disconnect. I know people think that people are just not aware. Oh, they're aware. But much like
they don't care.
No,
they don't care. No, they're aware. They just don't care. Yeah.
Abby Martin was on with Zaina Day on Status Quo, and she said, I still can't wrap my head around how absolutely genocidal these people are and how violent they are and how much they revel in other people's pain and suffering. But I see it. I see it with this guy. Like it is very Nazi-like in the sense that they could commit the atrocities on the one hand, and then on the other hand, they could go to a gala dinner and everything's hunky-dory and fine, and there's no real problems here.
The Zios are worse than Nazis. We've talked about this. I actually think they're worse than Nazis. Nazis, to some extent, at least in the beginning part, they knew what they were doing wouldn't be popular, and they covered it up. Zios, they have field trips and take their kids to Gaza to go look. So they advertise what they're doing. So you have an entire rabid society of people that are literally cheering for it. Whereas in Nazi Germany, I don't know that was the case for most German people. I don't know.
But I also think
Israelis are not psychopathic society.
But this is the other point that I like to bring up, especially when it comes to bigotry in society. And when you deal with people that will, let's say, call you derogatory names. And I say, well, do these people have power? Do they have infrastructural power? Overwhelmingly, they generally do not. But the Zionists, they do. They have economic power. They have political power. And they have call me crazy, but I really believe in what Whitney Webb has been writing about, that a lot of what the Zionists are able to get away with has to do with this substantially large network of blackmail in which they are able to capture all the powerful levers of society and just run roughshod over everybody because they've got something on everybody. They've got something on Jerry Seinfeld, let's say. There is no rational explanation as to how this is going on unless there's something going on. There is no other way.
Why? I just think they're psychopaths. I don't think it's that complicated.
They are, but I don't think you can. There's no way to hide this now. This is way too deliberate and in people's faces. So what's the reason? Why are they able to get away with this? And I think there has to be something to perhaps a network of blackmail. Well, what do you think it is?
It's hubris. They've done it for so long. They think that their shit don't stink.
Yeah. That's what I say. I say, fly, Icarus, fly. Keep on flying. Because that's what it's been a whole bunch of impunity, and they're going to continue to get away with it for a little bit, unfortunately. Like, I do see the Palestinians as horrific collateral damage, but at the end of the day, the Zionist state is going to fall. It cannot succeed. Like, it cannot go on like this. It will end up in a way similar to South Africa, where whether or not it's based on their economics or the fact that people are leaving there in droves or whatever it is that they can't really sustain, and they have nothing going on. I mean, the rest of the world is treating them like outcasts. Only here is it acceptable?
The other thing that we have to talk about, which I think is very important, and I wanted to bring this up because there are a lot of people, and we know that change is happening right now. We are well aware that there is a cultural shift that is happening right now against the state of Israel, and we have very strong, solid relationships with a lot of people who are in the populist right, particularly the libertarians. They have created a real firestorm against the Trump administration, that they are not on board with Israel in any way, shape, or form. In fact, they are trying to figure out a way to just completely disengage our attachment to the state altogether, which would obviously be wonderful. However, there is no question that because of the fact that the Zionist movement puts I'm trying to think of the right way to say this, there is an association between Judaism and Zionism that is deliberate on their part, which conflates this idea that there isn't a separation. And by doing so, it gives credence to the anti-Semites that are legitimately out there that are trying to paint this as it's the Jews, it's the Jews, it's the Jews. And the person with the largest platform that I have seen personally, that I believe is engaging in that type of rhetoric, is Dan Bilzerian. Now, anybody who knows who Dan Bilzerian is knows that this guy's...
I have no idea who that is. Who is that?
He's not somebody that you would really have any interest in. He's a total jerk off in every sense of the word. He's a Nepo baby. He had a huge Instagram account that basically just had to do with him living a jet setter lifestyle in Las Vegas with strippers and guns and drugs and all of that shit. And all of a sudden, this guy is making posts about how free Palestine, which is all well and good, and I definitely agree with it. And I'm assuming, Colin, that this is the tweet that I had sent you to put up there. That was from Dan Bilzerian.
Yeah, that first one was Dan's tweet.
Okay. So this is what Dan Bilzerian decides is how he's going to continue to perpetuate this message of Leon Trotsky's real name was Lev Bronstein. Genrik Yagoda's was Enoch Lagoda, and Lenin's last name was Ulanov. They were all Jews, and they genocided 60 million Christians right before World War II. You aren't taught this because it kills the narrative of Jews always being the victims. Again, if you're going to go down this road, and let's be honest, he's also referencing Lenin, Bolshevism. He's referencing any form of left politics as essentially being, the enemy. And I have, like I said, I pay attention to what a number of these so-called influencers have to say, but Bilzerian is somebody who I have known for many years. I know what his shtick is, what his content is all about. It is not endearing. It's not warm. It's very chauvinistic and in your face. And I'm not a woke person in any way. Like I call a spade a spade. I see it as I see it.
This definitely has a reeky of real anti-Semitism to it.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. Like if it exists, you have to call it out. And what ends up happening because he does this, if you look at the commentary based on his tweet, what is there? What is the overwhelming message? You are giving credence directly to the Zionist movement, saying, "See, they're all anti-Semites. They just want to kill Jews, etc." This hurts the movement against Zionism. Dan Bilzerian must be called out for this bullshit. And anybody who supports the Palestinian cause has to speak up against fuckheads like this, because he does not care about the cause at all. He is conflating Judaism with Zionism, and that is the last thing that should be happening here, because when you do that, you are only giving the Zionist movement more leverage to continue their genocide.
Correct.
Against Palestine.
It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I've had people either come into my comment section on my streams, or they've come into my mentions on Twitter, and they would blame Jewish people for everything, right? And that is a dangerous line to walk on, because you need to be able to delineate between Judaism and Zionism. By the way, according to Dan Bilzerian, he's talking about those 60 million Christians. How many of those Christians were Nazis? We got to talk about that, because wasn't the Pope, or wasn't the Catholic Church also in support of, in Germany, of the Nazi Party?
Well,
right?
yeah.
So therefore, just because they're Christian doesn't mean they're good. Just because they're Christian doesn't mean they're all right. Because here's the problem: most of the Zionists here in the United States are actually Christian.
Oh yeah.
So.
And they don't like Jews. Actually, a good fair amount of them are actually anti-Jewish. I don't even want to use the term anti-Semitic anymore, because we're talking about white Jews who aren't even Semites. And it's just annoying, the whole thing. But there are a lot of the Christian Zios are actually pretty much Jew haters. They need us to be in Israel for the rapture, right? They don't care about Jewish people at all. And Zionists who were traditionally secular didn't really care about being Jews either. So there's a reason that the Jewish Zionists and the Christian Zionists get along, because they're all anti-Semitic in terms of they're anti-Jewish. And that's what's so interesting. And what bothers me as a Jewish person who feels like I was used as a tool of ethnic cleansing and brainwashed and propagandized from like birth, as were my grandmother and my parents. Like that was just how it was. Jews were used by the Zionists. It isn't that the Zionists represent the Jews. They used the Jews, and they're still using the Jews. So that's how I see it. I feel violated as a Jewish person by Zionism.
And Jay, you brought up a great point about the Christian Zionists, which is the Jewish Zionist movement is a much more affluent movement. The Christian Zionists are typically found in places like the Heartland in the South. It's the Joel Austins of the world. They prey on people who are educated in and around the church more so than they are around the school. And so that God-fearing adolescence really gets seeped into their brain, and it becomes a substantial part of their identity as they grow up. And so there was apparently some type of a pro-Israel, because it was Israel Day, I think a couple of days ago.
May 14th is Israel's Independence Day, or so they declared.
Independent from what?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, that's what we always grew up calling it, because that's actually the same as my birthday. And so I always grew up, we would celebrate Israel's Independence Day. Ironically, the day before Nakba Day. See how those two things go together?
I want everyone here to see what a loony Christian Zionist sounds like when they're talking at one of these events.
Percent of Muslims are radical, which amounts to what, 220 million?
I actually hadn't heard the fact before that 20% of Muslims are radical.
Yeah.
Where did you get that information from?
Oh, do you want me to tell you exactly the source?
Yeah. It doesn't matter.
I can't recall. I'm going through menopause, so my brain is actually up to 25%.
Okay.
I'll show you.
No. This is really interesting. I like to learn you.
Yeah. And so, of course, the Islamic regime, the IRGC, are...
Reverend Haley Ace never showed us the source of that statistic, so we fact-checked her and found it to be untrue. Can you tell me your name and what you're doing here today?
Yeah, my name is Reverend Haley Ace. I'm a founder of Christian...
Reverend Haley Ace.
She seems very Christ-like. Okay, so let's continue.
Well, come on. Don't you think those earrings give it away, Jen?
What bothers me is she's totally like, as somebody who, and I know this sounds really lame, but growing up, like the English accent just makes us sound a little bit smarter, and she sounds like a fucking moron. So I find it very disappointing. Anyway.
And let's not forget, there are so many people out there that start their little nonprofit organizations just to get money. Christian
you get to be tax exempt. Oh, there's a million of those. I didn't realize that was something in the UK too. Like, do you guys have a whole bunch of evangelical tax exempt church things? Like
the one and only
Traver's answer.
The one and only thing that Bill Maher was ever right about was that, if you want to get rich, just start a church, get all that tax exempt money.
It's hilarious. I was an evangelical for almost 20 years.
Wow.
So, what this lady is saying is very unchristlike. Of course, I'm no longer a Christian, but I used to teach and go door to door teaching people the Bible. And so, just to debunk her with the Bible, it says in Galatians chapter 3, verse 28, it says, "There's neither Jew nor Greek, nor slave nor free, nor is male or female, for you all are one in Christ." So therefore, to say that somebody who is of the religion of Islam, calling them a huge chunk of them terrorists and things like that, that's very unloving, because you're painting the group with a broad brush. In fact, people who practice Judaism without Zionism, they are very deeply loving and very accepting people. People who practice Islam are deeply loving and accepting people. People who actually follow what Jesus said are deeply loving and compassionate people. It's the perversion of it, which Zionism does, which Christian Zionism does. And there's perversions in every single type of religion, even perversions, even when it comes to atheists. The problem is that you have people like this who are trying to do a us versus them, which keeps the workers divided, because most workers are people who are either religious, and if they're not religious, then they have some proximity to religion. And it really keeps us divided against one another, so that we don't actually come together to improve our material conditions.
Yeah, it's intertwined with the class war, and people like her are tools of it. But with people like this, it's hard to know because there's people that legitimately believe they're nonsense, and then there's people that it's a total grift. And I don't always know the difference. She's the founder of Christian Action. She sounds very Christian. So let's let her finish.
Action against anti-Semitism, and I also help organise these protests, the counter-protests with Stop the Hate. Today, the Palestinian Solidarity Campaign are marching under...
Yeah, bye-bye.
So it turns out that this bimbo, with all due respect, apparently is in league with Stop Anti-Semitism and going around and basically doxing people who speak out against the state of Israel. So
Bet you she could trace her funds to the ADL.
Jay, how do you think she affords those diamond cross earrings of hers?
Well, I'm just saying she's accepted. I would not be surprised if somebody were to take the time and go through the records and dig through her paperwork, that she is getting funding some way, somehow, from some sort of Zionist organization, that this is not something that she just believes in.
Somebody better check them books.
I'm just saying, I don't know what the rules are over there for that, but because that doesn't seem like a real thing.
No.
Yeah, she kind of sounds like a Zionist Christian televangelist that's like, oh, we gotta stop anti-Semitism. It's funny. Everybody is always like, we gotta stop anti-Semitism, but then once you research who are Semites, then that also includes Palestinians.
Well, that's what I've been saying. That's why we need to stop calling it. And what's interesting is the majority of people that cry anti-Semitism, they're not the Semites. It's mostly, if not all, white Ashkenazi Jews. It was created. Anti-Semitism is not a phrase from anywhere but Europe. It was created in Europe. There was no anti-Semitism in the quote unquote Arab world, because they're all Semites. And by the way, and so it had nothing to do with what their religion was. That was completely a side note. So the entire concept of anti-Semitism was completely created in Europe, because it was a way for certain white Europeans to further separate from less white Europeans, a la Jews, and create a tiered hierarchy system, because, we need to punch down. And so that was the scapegoat, but they're not Semites. And the Zionists who actually bought into that shit, they felt that, well, if we don't really establish ourselves with our own nation, we don't have as much. We're not as good. We're not as, high and mighty as people that have their own nation, their own language, their own this. So that's where it all came from. It all came from anti-Semitism created in Europe, because that wasn't a thing anywhere else. Arabic people That's not even a phrase. In fact, my understanding is it doesn't even exist in the language. Like there's no translation. Like, you know what I mean? Like there's something about it that it's just, they don't say that.
So it sounds like it's based in white supremacy.
Completely.
Yeah.
It's completely based on white supremacy because the whitest Europeans were trying to, you know how like there's a pecking order everywhere. South Americans, like the high and mighty Argentinians don't necessarily want to affiliate with the Peruvians, right? Like there's a hierarchy everywhere. And one of the things, even in Europe, is the Mediterranean darker Europeans were definitely lesser than. And that's just been always, and Jews they were a group that they were allowed to not consider white. Jews weren't considered white. Gotcha. And that's where that came from. So they were like anti-Semites because they didn't consider Jews white.
Yeah. It kind of reminds me of the Romani people, how since they're not, white, then therefore, they were called gypsies and things like that. When in reality, the Romani people are, they were persecuted as well. So, yeah.
And I'm pretty friggin' white. Like, I mean, I'm not as white as Peter. I mean, he's pasty, but like I'm white. So it's interesting that like, and my family, I come from a long line of extremely very pale white people. So the fact that like there's nothing Semitic about my people.
I would argue whether I'm actually as white
and Poland and Austria or whatever up there. And I do have a little bit of Han Chinese. I did find that out. It's very strange. And Tamil Indian, which that doesn't make any sense to me either. But like we're not even Semites. That's what I find so fascinating. Well, I'm not a Semite.
Well, when you think of when talking about other parts of the world, and obviously we see what's been going on in South Africa. And I know this is a topic, Jen, you wanted to talk about, and Jay, of course, you being here, and this would be an example of just like deliberate thumbing of the eye. Refugees that are allowed in the United States and are allowed to skip the line versus others, and they couldn't make it more obvious.
The white genocide that's happening in South Africa.
Hey, let's at least give them the benefit of the doubt.
Okay, let's talk about.
Wondering where all these South Africans are gonna go? Don't worry, they already had a plan in place, and it was called Acre Trader. That's right. They already took the farmland from farmers who were failing. As a matter of fact, they have about 40,000 acres of farmland that they took from American farmers because they wouldn't give them subsidies. Acre Trader is an American real estate investment company that specializes in farmland. It says here that the company aims to increase investor access to real estate assets and provides capitals to farmers and growers to expand their business.
So one thing
I sent you this.
Yes, I know. And one thing I should mention yes, Jen, sometimes you send things that are worth putting up on the podcast.
No, but I don't always remember what I send you.
Well, that's all.
And also, by the way, I didn't understand it, which is why I was sending it to you, because you're the real estate person.
I'm in commercial real estate, and one thing that I try to make very clear to people is that I believe in the free market, but not this. This ain't a free market. Are you crazy? This is a market that is completely monopolized, concentrated into the hands of a few. And when it comes to any type of major corporation, a great example of that would be Ben & Jerry's ice cream. We've had Ben Cohen on the podcast. He and Jerry decided to sell their interest to a company called Unilever. Well, it turns out that Unilever, which is a multinational corporation, invests in the state of Israel. Full stop. And so while Ben Cohen is trying to reacquire Ben & Jerry's, it is very important to note, why is it that Unilever conducts business the way that it does? Because it is a publicly traded company and it adheres to the will of their shareholders.
It has to. That's by law. They're legally bound to do that. That's the problem. Hence capitalism.
And that is the broken side of the system that has completely engulfed any semblance of competition, opportunity to succeed in the free market. That doesn't exist. And when everybody says that you can have this because we just need to get rid of the waste, I tell people you cannot have a successful free market of capitalism without socialism. There is no way that it can work otherwise. And so when we look at circumstances like this, where the government has been completely bought off by corporate special interests like Acre Trader. The idea that you have farmers in this country who are not able to make ends meet because all of their subsidies are being taken away. They are providing a service. They're providing food, land, irrigation, everything. There is so much value to what farming is supposed to be. You know, we ask ourselves, why does Bill Gates own 250,000 acres of farmland? Where is the logic behind that other than monopolization of the food supply?
Well,
which is of course what he's doing. And so Acre Trader, I'm not saying they have any affiliation with Bill Gates. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. But what they do have is a direct line to the multinational corporations that want to monopolize our food supply and our water supply. And the reason they're able to get away with this is because we do not have a government that answers to the will of the people in any way. So it's just like I said, when people say, oh, how could you say revolution? This is why. Because there is no way out of this.
So are you saying that this is the land that they're earmarking for those horrid, those South African refugees fleeing persecution? This is the land that they're allocating to them?
The problem that people need to understand, and that's not to say that institutional racism does not exist. It most certainly does. But institutional racism is being used as a shield, as a mask for what this is all about. The reason that these South African refugees are being brought here is because this is all economics. This is all about facilitating the interests of corporate power.
Does she explain how it works?
Well, let's continue, and she's going to share more insight.
But what they failed to leave out here is that the first investor into Acre Trader was none other than J.D. Vance. You know J.D. Vance, the one who was in charge of the White House with the president who is cutting all the subsidies to the farmers? Yeah, that J.D. Vance. And what they also failed to mention is the fact that the people who were investing, yeah, they were South Africaners. And guess who just came to America to go on these farms? That's right. You guessed it. Are you sick of it yet? Are you sick of it yet? $880 billion being pulled from Medicaid so they can fund tax money going to the rich. Your farmland being taken away from American farmers and being given to South African refugees. People being human trafficked all over the United States.
I just want to say, you know what, though? Good that it's happening here. That's what the Palestinians have to deal with. They have to deal with some colonizer coming and taking their land and kicking them out of their homes. So it's like, you don't get to do that all around the world and not have that shit happen at home. And people need to see this shit happening. Yeah, because the farmers have been screwed in this country since the 70s. I mean, it goes back probably even further than that. But that's when big ag really dug in and everybody got screwed. And so I told you this about those South African refugees. I said, I don't know how, I don't know why this is connected to Elon Musk. I told you that. I couldn't quite figure that out, but there's no way that his South African ass is not involved in this.
Perhaps.
Okay. Sorry.
We'll finish it up.
States and outside of this country for financial gain. Minimum wage is $7.25. Hasn't been raised since 2009. You can't afford health care. You can't afford your car insurance. You're probably not going to be able to buy a home anytime soon. And grocery prices are through the roof. And guess who's going to own your food now? The People's Sick Day is coming. It's going to be a 1 to 3 day collection of people who are going to take back their power by setting down. No more showing up for work when you're making peanuts and they're giving away your farmland to foreigners. You better join us, because unless we stand up, none of us are going to win this fight.
So right, we're colonizing our own people. That's just fucking great. It's yeah. I mean, I feel like I'm living in the Hunger Games. If Stanley Tucci were to appear as Caesar Flickerman with the bad pair of veneers and start emceeing this shit, it would be very believable to me.
Well, how far away from the Hunger Games are we, Jay? I mean, I know that they say that it was only a half-hearted joke, but this idea that they're trying to create a reality TV show for people to compete for for immigrants to compete for U.S. citizenship.
Was that somebody said that as a joke?
They said it was a joke and they say it's not legit, but I'm thinking, well, you're just putting an idea in people's heads. And considering this is Trump mania that we're living through right now, who's to say that that's not going to happen?
Well, everything's a reality show to them.
Yeah. And I still haven't seen Idiocracy, and Lord knows I should see that movie.
Yeah. I mean, to add to Jen's point, fascism is imperialism turned inward. And so now, happy birthday to Malcolm X. Today would have been his 100th birthday.
Yep.
This is when he says chickens are coming home to roost.
For sure.
And, yeah. And so now you have South Africans, white South Africans, that are coming here to take over land that didn't belong to them, that was stripped from a lot of farmers. And I got to say, this is, black farmers are the canary in the coal mine, because that started with them, right? They started stripping the land away. And so now it's happening to white farmers too. And so now it's going towards these foreigners who aren't refugees at all. I mean, according to the South African president, they do not meet the conditions of being refugees. And in fact, white South Africans are only 7% of the population in South Africa, yet they own over 80% of the farmable land in South Africa. So when it comes to institutional power, they absolutely do. And so really, I'm going to call a thing a thing. These are just a bunch of special little snowflakes that couldn't make it in South Africa, and they come here to try to strip the land up from the people. And so it's like, y'all couldn't cut it in South Africa, so now you guys try to come here and cut it here. But the funny part is, one thing I heard is that they're going to be putting some of these South Africans in neighborhoods, and in neighborhoods where the population is predominantly Black American. And we got to say this. I'm going to say this right now. We are not like our South African brethren. Go ahead. Put them up in Baltimore.
I was just going to say, good luck with that.
Put them in Chicago, right? Put them in Detroit. Go ahead and do it. But I'm going to tell you right now, you say one wrong thing, I'm going to tell you right now, and I'm going to say it just like the Gen Z says, you're going to catch a fade real quick. Real quick.
Yeah.
So they better mind their P's and Q's, and just because I'm telling you right now, it's not going to fare well for them at all.
No.
Jen, I think this would be.
I love the find out portion. I'm always a big fan of the find out portion of the games.
Jen, can you share? Jen, can you share with Jay, because I think it's appropriate to bring up the story from, Mo and A1 in
what
Hollywood.
happened with our community garden?
Yeah.
Well,
I think that's very relevant. To
it is. I mean, it's just it's part of the gentrification problem, but essentially, friends of mine who are community workers, very much a la, mutual aid and really taking care in the community over here. Mm-hmm. One of them grew up in that community. He's like, the godfather of Liberia, basically. But we had created this community garden, and it was going really well.
Nice.
It was really nice. And people from that community were bringing their kids over, and it was starting to really take off. Then some Israeli buys this house next door, and I called her Israeli Karen. She would come over and start nosing around what's going on in the garden, and can you move this? And we don't want that, and and all of this stuff. And I remember pulling her aside at one point and saying to her, you and I are kind of guests in this neighborhood, right? This isn't our neighborhood. I'm here helping my friends with their garden, but you kind of, I basically told her she needs to know her place politely. And she never got it. And over enough time. And I actually believe that she's the reason that they lost their garden, because at the end of the day, she probably called her husband and had him buy it out from under them because it was given to them by someone who was basically donated it because he didn't really need the money, but somebody made him a really good offer. And I have no doubt that it trails back to Israeli Karen.
Yeah, no,
And
dude, this woman literally rolled up into the hood in her white Mercedes.
it was gross. But when she walks
Yeah.
over and she says to Aaron, he's our friend, and he is he's very streets. I mean, he is. That's just who he is. And she walks up to him and starts, and he looks at me and he's like, Can you talk to her? I'm like, yeah, I'll deal with her. You know, I was like sort of put on white lady duty, I guess. But like it was she was so out of her element, but I could tell that she was just so put off by the fact that there's all these Black people here, you know, in the neighborhood that you bought, but no one probably told her that. And they're trying to gentrify the neighborhood. So it was just one nightmare after the other once they bought that property next door. And they ended up losing the garden.
And that's where having strong community ties is essential, where people need to be working together, because if the community was working together, you would have been able to run Karen or Zarin in this case. I think that's a good one, a Zionist Karen. So you got the Zarin out of town. I'm telling you, dude, I wanted to take her head off. And
it was annoying. It was annoying. Yeah. And at the end, but here's the thing, everything happens for a reason. I do believe that. And that area, it's kind of like, it's so used to being abused at this point that there's just, I don't know that they'll ever find a way out of it other than being completely gerrymandered or gentrified and taken over. I don't know what's going to happen over there. They build all these apartments that no one there can afford to live in. They call it subsidized housing, but there's like 3,000 applicants for every one spot, and it's not even that inexpensive. Like just all that, you know what I'm talking like, don't you? It's everywhere. This is everywhere.
Yeah. It's sad in, you know, as far as that lady, whoever she is.
Oh, she's terrible.
You know, I've seen how Africans are treated in Israel, especially the Ethiopian Jews.
Oh, well,
And
they're
so-
Mizrahi Jews. You know, that's what they're called. Mizrahi Jews are the Arabic Jews and the African Jews. It's not derogatory. They're referred to as Mizrahi Jews.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, they are second-class citizens, and they've always been. They only imported them from Ethiopia to make their numbers. You know that, right?
I'm sorry, what was that?
They used them. They used the Ethiopian Jews. See, and I can say my mother-in-law was actually part of this group, International JCC of Americas, and all these people that helped coordinate the trip. So they were saving the Jews from Ethiopia. They were saving the Ethiopian Jews. But what they did was they needed to import them because they need to have the numbers to maintain themselves as a Jewish state. They need to maintain 80% Jewish to 20% in their mind Arabic. But they used Ethiopian Jews and other Mizrahi Jews to do that, but yet keep them as second-class citizens in when they get there. So yes, I'm very familiar with how they've treated the Ethiopian Jews.
Yeah, so it's really no surprise is when Zionist Israelis come here and they see Black Americans, especially in that way. This is why I always look at anybody that's a Zionist. I look at them as, you know, somebody who would potentially be white supremacist against people like myself. Because if you guys are treating Palestinians that way, then you guys probably look at us the same way too. And so therefore, it's like I don't trust Zionists around me or my people either. So, you know, that just kind of, you know, reinforces, you know, how I feel about it, you know, because it's like I look at how you treat other marginalized groups and I go, if you're going to treat other marginalized groups like that, then how are you going to treat me? And so that's how I look at it. It's the same way, like, for instance, if I'm out with friends and if I have a friend, or not friend, but like an acquaintance that treats somebody in the service industry like crap, then that person is not going to be an acquaintance of mine any longer.
I was a
Because-
waitress for longer than I was an attorney. So I have a very, I was a Hooters waitress when I was in college. I know it's hard to imagine, but it was a long time ago. So I have total, like, I way more identify with the serving people than with the non-serving people. I completely.
Well, I
Yeah.
wasn't hired by Hooters, but I was a bartender,
Thankfully.
and a server, and it was. Jay, I could not agree with you more. I think the reflection of people in general can best be served based on how they treat people that are in the service industry.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I was a line cook, right?
Really?
Yeah, I went to school for culinary, and I went into the industry before I got sick, and I was a line cook in the industry for some years, and so I saw how, you know, a lot of my fellow workers, especially the servers, food runners, the bussers, how they were treated, especially within the restaurants. And there would be times where the chef would literally have to come out of the back of the house and tell them where to shove that New York strip. So trust me, I've seen it, and it's terrible, because the thing is, it's like, people look at service workers, you know, they look down their nose at them. And it's the same way when it comes to people who are of marginalized, you know, identities. You know, they get looked down upon. And so this is why I have I'm very sensitive to how people who are marginalized are treated. Now, if that person who's marginalized was being a jerk, I understand. Okay.
No,
but
marginalized people can be assholes. I know people that are marginalized communities, but they're still also assholes.
Yeah, trust me, I do too. But my thing is like, of course, you know, it's a case by case basis. But, you know, a lot of times, you know, with people like that lady, whoever she was, you know, wanting to run people, basically the community out so that she can raise, you know, the property values. It just gets under my skin, because it's like they were there before you. And
we worked so hard on that too. Like, that's what's so, like, it was such a love thing, like such a love project, labor of love rather, you know, and it was very devastating. You know what I mean? Like, it was mean. It was mean.
I think this has been a fantastic conversation, but we don't want to let you go just yet, because we have probably the most important topic of the night to talk about.
Which is?
Of course, we all know that there has been a massive cover-up, the depths of which I don't think we will fully understand for quite some time. But it is painfully clear that for you, Jay, for myself, for Jen, and many others, we were kind of drawn into this so-called political revolution in the summer of 2015 by Bernie Sanders, thinking that perhaps there was a movement that was legitimate this time. I kind of got drawn into Obama the first go around, but very shortly thereafter, I saw through it. But when Bernie ran the first time and talked about how he was going to run clean, that's what drew me in. I just thought, well, I don't really have to agree with all of his politics. I just have to agree that he's not going to be bought and paid for by corporate special interests. And as the Democratic Party showed us, as they have shown us over the past decade, and they are daring millions upon millions of people to leave the party en masse because they are not going to change. And if you think that this latest scandal that President Biden has stage 4 prostate cancer that has metastasized to his bones, that he somehow he just got this as soon as he left the White House. He's probably had this for years. They have all known that he's had it for years. And they kept quiet about it. Why? Thousands of federal employees that depend upon the President of the United States to employ them. The nonprofit think tanks that make millions of dollars hand over fist, led by the Center for American Progress and Neera Tanden and many others. The corporate media opportunists, too many to name, but let's just say one of them is an anchor on CNN peddling a book right now after he basically told everybody that they're a bunch of liars for suggesting.
Are you talking about Fake Snapper?
Fake Snapper? That's a good one.
I don't know. I don't know. I'm just trying to, avoid being like shadow banned.
Well, let's see. Well, let's just see. Forget about it. No, let's see how sharp he really was.
The idea that I'm the old guy, I am. I'm old. But I'm only 3 years older than Trump, number one. And number two, my mental acuity has been pretty damn good. I've gotten more done than any president has in a long, long time, in 3.5 years. So I'm willing to be judged on that. I understand.
Nothing. You understand nothing.
Nothing.
But if there is a person who is the most guilty.
Well, this is my opinion.
Yes. I would agree. And I think Jay would agree as well. This is the person, more than anyone else, who is the most guilty of this particular instance. I mean, listen, the Democratic Party overall is a complete failure. We understand.
That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about Joe.
We are talking about Joe and why Joe was force-fed on us in 2020 and then ultimately again in 2024. This is the person who is responsible for this.
Joe, you did such a great job. You answered every question. You knew all the facts. And let me ask the crowd, what did Trump do? Why?
I hold Jill Biden very, very culpable and very accountable, needs to be held accountable. I've been saying that actually since he even got elected. I think that there could be a case for elder abuse. I think that if they knew a couple years ago, she knew a year before that. And there is no way that his spouse didn't know. So she's been pushing him in a way, not only that's completely unhealthy for him, most likely, but just so disingenuous and just so unbelievably self-serving. So and it's funny to me that I don't feel like anybody else is talking about this. I was saying this to Peter before. Why is nobody talking about Jill Biden or Dr. Jill, some doctor, what her accountability is in this? Because I got to tell you, as someone who is a married person, that's your next of kin. That's your person. That's the person who knows what's going on. They're probably unless you have other documents drawn up, that's your power of attorney. That's who would be responsible for you if you were incompetent. I mean, forget the Kamala 25th Amendment thing. Where the fuck was his wife? And why is nobody holding her accountable? I'm just saying, I really want to know why nobody else is talking about this but me.
And we have to be very clear. And listen, we love you, Colanello. You've been a supporter of our channel since the beginning. We appreciate you being here. But your language, your statement is akin to the statement of David Axelrod. Oh, we don't have to talk about this. No, we do have to talk about it, because the reason we don't have single-payer health care and a living wage is because of people like you who say, let's focus on the fascists. How the fuck did they get there? How did they get there? They got there because the system's rigged, and it's rigged by people like the Bidens and the Democratic Party establishment and all the intricate components that move in concert to make it so.
Right, stop yelling at Colanello. Let Jay
can I address that as well?
Please.
Because here's the problem, is that you don't see Joe Biden as a fascist either.
I do. You mean them?
No, I'm not talking about you, but I'm talking about the person who commented.
I'm like, I do.
You don't see him as a fascist, so therefore you're like, let's focus on the fascists. Well, we are.
Exactly.
There's two sides to this fascist coin. There's the red fascists and the blue fascists. And the thing is like, for instance, here's the thing. You cannot tell me that somebody who greenlit a 21st century Holocaust is not a fascist. He is. So therefore, we're focusing on fascism. We're focusing on the fascism of the prior administration and the fascism of this present administration. But the problem is that there was a cover-up. And the cover-up is absolutely important to focus on, because we're realizing that somebody like a Dr. Joe Biden, she was part of that cover-up.
Absolutely.
Like Joe Biden had his AIPAC handlers. He also had his corporate handler who he's married to. Because ultimately, the person who's the president of the United States is just a middle manager to make sure to keep the system going the way it is. So therefore, basically, she Nancy Reaganed it.
Yeah. Because and here's the thing, and as somebody, and I don't know if everyone, but my husband's a urologist. And so if there's something I do kind of know a little bit about, it is actually prostate cancer. So, most people, and I mean by far most men who get diagnosed with prostate cancer, it is not, it moves very, very slowly. So they're calling it aggressive because who knows how long he's really had it. But most people who have prostate cancer don't die from it. They die from something else that happens along the way, because it's just not a common thing. So the fact that they're saying this now is because, and I believe that he's just going to die soon, and they know that. And so they have to at least put out this thing of like, plausibly it was the prostate cancer, when in fact, who knows what level of like Alzheimer's and other shit he's dealing with. But I find her extremely culpable. So it sounds like you agree. Like if they knew, when they knew the people who were around him, how soon did she know he wasn't dealing with a full deck?
I mean, the fact is that it went metastatic and it actually transferred over to his bones. So therefore, that had to have taken years to get to.
Exactly.
And so for him to just now find that out, no, that's complete and utter BS. Because the thing is, he's supposed to be checked out often, and not just checked out often because he's the president, but also because he's an old man. So therefore, he has to be checked out often in order to make sure that things are copacetic. Apparently, things weren't copacetic. And not only Dr. Joe Biden, I hold culpable, but the doctor at the White House, I also hold culpable for this as well. Because this should have been called out immediately. Because and also everybody was saying, well, back in July, he dropped out of the race due to health concerns. If he didn't have a health concern, then why did he drop out?
Yeah. And when you think about it, there are so many people that were in on it, that were taking advantage of it. And here's a little tidbit that I thought was very interesting. Now, obviously, you know who Jen ran for Congress against. And if there was a person that was at the front of the line touting Joe Biden.
You mean this psycho?
Yeah, that's I'm telling you, that's what Debbie really looks like when she
takes her skin off, when she takes her human suit off. That's what she looks like. Yes. And Jay, just so you know, this Debbie we don't know exactly who it is, but we think we do. But it's a friend. It's somebody that comes in there to mess with me. Like, it's somebody that we know. We just don't know exactly who it is. But
now, if you want the ultimate upper class Zionist Karen move to end all Zionist Karen moves, even this will surprise you, Jen. So apparently this is something that somebody dug up from the WikiLeaks files in 2016. DNC's Debbie Wasserman Schultz abused her position to have Biden congratulate her daughter's bat mitzvah. I mean, of all the things to use your position for.
By the way, everyone take a good look. That was the last time Debbie had her hair done. And the reason is, and I truly believe this, is she was doing it on the dime of the DNC. She was getting her hair coiffed, setting it. All of that was on that. And once she couldn't do that anymore, that's when she just stopped doing it.
By the way, Jay, and you probably don't know that. You may know this, you may not know this, but what really set things in motion that led to Hillary, to the Clintons, taking over the Democratic Party establishment through the Clinton Foundation was that Debbie was the head of the DNC for 5 years. And apparently she was the longest tenured DNC chair. And she would have went on for many years after if 2016 didn't happen.
Obama tried to get rid of her and she cried anti-Semitism.
He tried to get rid of her. I found a clip from the Democratic convention in 2012. Obama tried to get her out, and she made a big stink about it at the convention, saying that Obama was an anti-Semite. I have not been able to find this clip for the longest time. I probably got, you know what? It's like the time, there were a handful of things that happened the first time Jen ran against Debbie. One of them was discovering that she sat on the board of ALEC and no one knew about this. The fact that she sat on the board of ALEC and got caught. And
what did I do? Something happened. I didn't.
You are like you're like a toddler messing around with stuff.
Sorry.
That's what you did.
God damn it. I was just trying to write in the comments. Jesus. Sorry.
Anyway, she got caught basically as a member of ALEC. She was like, ALEC is I think there was like 40 board members of ALEC, and 3 of them were Democrats. And she was one of the 3. And as a result, because we were able to put this out there, we put it in like a fundraising email, Debbie was able to get her name scrubbed from the website. But the internet's forever, and you could always find this information, and that's always out there. And so the story doesn't end there. So Wasserman Schultz is able to skate at the convention in 2012 and stay on as the DNC chair. In 2014, she spends, in terms of midterm spending for elections, she spent the equivalent of what you spend during a presidential election. She put the Democratic Party like $3 million into the red.
She bankrupted the party.
He bankrupted the party. And that's how Hillary and Bill got in there with the foundation. They funded the party, got them out of the red and into the black.
And still own it to this day.
How they took it over. And that is why we're here today. So when I tell people that Wasserman Schultz,
she's culpable,
as culpable as anybody in the Democratic Party for why we didn't get Bernie Sanders and got Donald Trump, that is the reason. I know people think, well, you can't just be one person. Well, no, it's not. But in terms of somebody who was 1,000%, I don't know who that person is, but we'll pull that up in a minute.
All right, hold on.
But talk about somebody who was culpable. Yeah. So to the bitter end, to the very end, Wasserman Schultz was out there until like the day before Joe decided to drop out, saying
he was perfectly fine.
Sharp. There's nothing wrong with him. He should stay in the race. Even after George Clooney did his mea culpa and all of them came out and said that he shouldn't be running. Frankly, I don't give a shit because the Democratic Party should go up in flames as they're going up in flames. But if you want to know how we got here,
it's Debbie. It's all roads lead to Debbie.
Did
you not know that that's why the Clintons own the party? And that is how everybody now, why Kamala was basically Hillary in a Kamala suit. They own the party still. So that's Team Clinton. And until this party is not that, it's dead. It's not going to win another national race. I don't think they're winning another national race.
As a cancer survivor, I know how difficult this news can be. I send my love and support to President Biden and his family. He's a ferocious fighter, and I know he'll handle this battle with strength and dignity. Steve, the kids, and I wish him a full and speedy recovery. Debbie Wasserman Schultz has been in Congress for 2 decades.
Debbie, your son voted for me.
She has voted. She has voted against single-payer health care every single term she has been in Congress.
She doesn't think other women deserve to have help with their breast cancer. But as a cancer survivor, she loves playing the cancer card. Also, I have to point out on behalf of my friend who is also a survivor and finds this infuriating about Debbie Wasserman Schultz, the amount of money she takes from the alcohol industry when alcohol is absolutely one of the causes of breast cancer. So she not only takes money from the alcohol industry, from Big Sugar, which Lord knows how unhealthy that is, all of those things. And then she plays the breast cancer survivor card. It's infuriating. It really is. Exactly.
Take it in, Jay.
So let me ask you this totally separate. So, okay, what are you like Buddhist now? Are you Muslim now? Like, where are you finding the Zen?
I am just taking a deep breath and just I'm trying not to scream so that I blow out my microphone.
Right. No, it's infuriating because I'm an atheist. So it's very hard for me. Like, I can't even sometimes I call it pink Jesus. I have a pink Jesus, but
Yeah. As far as somebody like Debbie Wasserman Schultz, she seems like she's cut from the same cloth as Joe Biden, because Joe Biden also said that it would be an insult to his dead son who died of cancer to give everybody universal health care. No, he seriously said that. And so when it comes to people like Debbie Wasserman Schultz, if there is a hell, there is a special place with her name labeled there. Because ultimately, for someone like her to have suffered through breast cancer and to say, I don't want everybody to have universal health care, And she can talk about how much it costs all she wants, but ultimately it's actually going to cost us less. She is one of those people who is abhorrent in her actions. She's abhorrent in her views. And I hope she never sees the inside of a public office ever again. Because ultimately she has been she's been horrible, not just for the United States, but for the state of Florida. She's been horrible for her constituents, because ultimately, what has she really truly done for her constituents or even the people of this country? You know, what significant thing has she really done? And the fact that she supports Israel, that means she's in support of the 100,000 plus people who have perished at the hands of Israel. So I really have no love or any type of reverence or respect for somebody like her. I have more respect for, shrimp flavored ramen noodles, who quite frankly looks a lot like her, than I do her. So yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say about
Yeah.
Debbie.
I'm starting to hone in on who the Debbie troll is, because they mentioned the drum circle, about that she does more important things than lead drum circle. And so whoever that is knows of my affinity for the drum circle, which means it's somebody who knows that I go to Asheville and go to the drum circle. So I'm going to start to hone in on whoever the troll is. I'm just saying it's somebody who knows I do the drum circle.
Yeah. The detective Jen.
Don't mock the drum circle. It's extremely good. I love the drum circle.
The problem, Jay, is that Debbie in a lot of ways is reflective in the district that she represents. Now, it's not all the way there, but what I can tell you is that the part of the district that votes, and this particular campaign that Jen ran in 24, it had a lot of misfires. But even if things were, straight and narrow and we had $1 million and all that, the substantial portion of the district that votes on a regular basis in primaries, they live in the western part of the county in towns like Plantation, Davie, Weston, Pembroke Pines. And most of these people live in gated communities. They live behind the canyon walls, of which you cannot reach them, which is on purpose. One thing I give Orlando credit for, there's a lot of YIMBY neighborhoods. Credit to people like Ann Escamani, who have helped change the narrative in that area. Notice I'm leaving out one particular name, but Escamani has done a great job. We don't have anybody like that in South Florida. And Debbie's been at the head of the class for quite some time, over 20 years. But as Jen, you've pointed out, when you went to the event in Hollywood, and it was really supposed to be about supporting the Palestinian people, the people who showed up were her constituents, and they were there for reasons that had little to nothing to do with obviously being there for what should have been in support of the Palestinian people. It was more about my concerns and
it was a bunch of privileged white people for the most part,
yes.
With their hands off Social Security and down with Trump, down with Musk. Like that was their mission. There was only one other person there with a keffiyeh, but that's just what this demographic is. That's what they care about. I mean, there's a reason that she's there. They're comfortable with that.
I also think it's a big reflection of the party and where it ultimately went. And I think that that's why we have to make a conscious effort to be building strength and structure outside of the party, because I think the party's ready to fall. That's my opinion. I think it's on its last legs in a lot of ways, and people are just pretending like that's not the case. I'm wondering if you think that the Democratic Party is in a significant level of trouble right now in terms of its infrastructure falling apart.
Well, I mean, I just want to ask you both a question. What is your timeline for the inevitable fall of the Democratic Party? Because a lot of people are saying that they don't see anything significant happening past 2028. Something tells me that 2026 is going to be a very lackluster, dull year for Democrats. If they win anything, it'll be kind of slight gains, maybe, but it won't be anything significant whatsoever. I do not see a blue wave ever again. So what do you guys think as a timeline for complete destruction of the Democratic Party?
I mean, look, we can only like be hopefully anticipatory, but to me, I think that you will not see another president from this incarnation of the Democratic Party. I don't think that they're capable of winning even any other statewide races with the exception of California. I actually don't think that AOC could win a statewide race in New York. I think that the Democrats are done. Yes, they will exist in niche places. They will exist at the congressional level, though, because they're still going to be in community spaces. But at the national level, they're going to be done. And they're just going to gradually tinker off. Also, most people who are register as no party. Second, they register as Republican. Democrat is third. So they're not even able to maintain
a distant third at that.
Right. So they're going to it's going to gradually taper off. But I think what will be noticeable is that I don't see them winning another national race. I don't see it happening. And there is nobody in that party that can win a national race.
Yeah, and then you have senators like Josh Hawley who take the opportunity because listen, you can say what you want about him. He's a good politician. He knows what he's doing. And when he is given, basically because there is no real opposition at this point, that he could come out today and say, we cannot cut Medicaid. That is not acceptable. Yeah, he's clearly going to run for president in 2028. We know Josh Hawley's going to be one of those guys, but that's going to give him a platform that he can use. You do not see anybody of note. You have somebody like Josh Hawley in the GOP saying we have to protect Medicaid. And who is it? And who's the Democratic Party pushing right now? They're pushing the CIA agent Slotkin in Michigan. That's who they want to put up on the marquee and say that this is the person we should be listening to. This is the person who has the pulse of what's going on. The party is dying.
Can I also add one of the other things that I do see happening is that because, and I said this back in 15, like we're having a populist uprising, right? Like that's happening. If they're not going to go to the left, they're going to go to the right. And so that's where you saw a whole bunch of people that might have supported Bernie ended up going with Trump and are probably all still out there in limbo because there is nobody. There is no Labor Party. So there is no populist party. But what we are seeing is a civil war within the Republican Party between the MAGA people and the other people. I don't even know really who's who, but I know that a whole bunch of them that are really America first are not with us being in all these wars. There is this populist right that I do think will inevitably split. And whatever that becomes, which has the best opportunity to be a Labor Party, will come from that. It's never coming from the Democratic side. So what I envision is they have a split, whatever that is, and that populist Republican group that splits off will hopefully be able to attract other labor people and really be a cross-pollination of a labor party. But it has no chance of happening in the Democratic Party. That is not, they don't want to have primaries. They don't want to have debates. They don't want to have discussions. The Republicans, they actually have primaries and debates within their own sphere. I disagree with them, but they at least will stand up within their own party. They also don't have superdelegates. So there's a lot of different things that make the Republican Party more democratic. But yeah, I think the Democrats are done nationally. I do. I don't think you'll see another president from them.
Yeah, another factor that that leads me to believe that the Democrats will be done, especially by 2028, is that you have a lot more Black people that are leaving the Democratic Party in droves because we're sick and tired of being used by the Democratic Party without getting any tangibles for our sacrifice, for our votes.
Yeah.
So therefore, we're constantly being placated. And
you got to get the women on board. You got to get the women. You got to get the women on board with you.
Jay, can you explain what that's about regarding especially older Black women that lived through the civil rights movement and why there is this blind devotion, even to this day, to the Democratic Party line. They
We
are
see
the
that
best.
here locally, that the women are much more clingy to the party, whereas we have definitely seen a shift amongst Black men where they're like, now, I know people that they supported Trump flat out, but not the women.
That's kind of a toughie, but you know, a lot of Black women, the Democratic Party will especially rhetorically say, "Oh my God, Black women, you guys are the ones that are going to save us." And what's sad is that Kamala Harris did for Black women what Barack Obama did for Black men.
It's not good.
It made us think that, oh, well, we're about to get ahead, when in reality, that was never the case.
No.
And if Kamala Harris would have won, here's the thing. Kamala Harris would have threw Black women under the bus, just like Barack Obama threw Black men under the bus. And then that would wake up some Black women. Other Black women probably would have said, well, let's just wait till she gets her second term, and we got to give her a chance, and blah, blah, blah. Unfortunately, a lot of Black women, on top of being Black, they're also women, which is also another marginalized position. And so they're trying to cling to something because they don't want to face further marginalization. They feel like they will face further marginalization, especially with the Republican Party, which is probably true, right? But the thing is that they don't want to go outside of the duopoly because it's like, well, we have to cling to the Democrats because at least we know that they have a shot at winning, so that we don't get our rights stripped away even more. And so it's really a fear that the Democratic Party instills.
Fear of the unknown. It's fear of the unknown. And I think that
Yes.
women definitely tend to be more cautious in general, I think, in decision making. So it makes sense that women that are from basically an intersectionalized, dually marginalized place are extra cautious, just extra cautious. So I get it, but that's definitely the stalwart kind of holdouts, if you will. But there's not, unfortunately, or fortunately, there's not enough of them that it will help nationally for the Democrats. Like, that's not enough of a block. And it's funny you say Obama. He's like, I find him the most repulsive of all of them. I actually dislike him more than I dislike W, because W I knew was a piece of shit. He was like, I lived in Texas when he was a governor. I knew he was garbage and not so bright. I had no expectations for him. He did exactly what I expected him to do. Obama, to me, that was the biggest disappointment of my participation in, and I volunteered on his campaign. I've always been very active and whatever. And his second presidential campaign was the first time in my entire life that I didn't volunteer on a campaign. That's how uninspired I was the second time. So yeah, no, I have beef with him. I also have beef of how he lives now. I have issues. I'm very disappointed. Anyway, yeah.
I think that it's inevitable. I think where Obama went off the rails was actually from the very beginning, because I think he had a real mandate during that first 100 days. And I think Jamie Dimon basically took him aside and said, if you go easy on the bankers, we're going to make you a very rich man the second you step out of this White House. You're going to get all the speeches. You'll get the book deal. Michelle will get a book deal, tens of millions of dollars. Look, getting that $15 million compound on Martha's Vineyard, for a lot of people, it's very tough to say no. He's not the only one, but he was the person in a position to make substantial infrastructural change in this country 16 years ago, and he didn't make it. And we are now falling even more down the cliff. And the question becomes, when are we at bottom? What we do know is that when we, as Jen likes to say, cross-pollinate with channels like yours, with RBN, like we did recently with Savvy, like we do with a lot of people, I think it is inherent upon us that are in the populist left movement to make as many inroads together as we can, to support each other as we can. This is our version in the digital world of being part of the collective and being a part of this effort, this collective effort that we are trying to do.
I'm having a revolution. I'm like done with this shit. I can't even anymore. I like feel, you know how you think it makes you itch? Like that's what I call like feeling like I want to jump out of my skin.
But this is our version, Jen. But this is our version of mutual aid. Our mutual aid in the digital world is making sure that we are highlighting other channels that are talking about getting back to the roots of our communities and looking out for each other in a way that the corporatocracy at the top can thwart us to a degree, but they can't do it the way they can in Washington, D.C. There they can control us all completely. But in terms of what we can do, whether it's in Orlando, whether it's in Fort Lauderdale, whether it's where I am up in the Panhandle and a lot of other places, there is a limit to what they can control at the local level. And most people agree on most of these concrete issues. We need to continue to facilitate these conversations. And we know, and you know this as well as anybody, a lot of people don't want to play in the sandbox together. They just don't. They have egos. They have different reasons for it. For us, we're not doing this for the money. We're doing this because we give a shit. That's
it's the mission that matters the most. And just to add to your point about Obama, Black people also have a bone to pick with Obama, especially those of us who are millennials and Gen Z. We have a huge bone to pick with him because Black wealth actually tanked under Obama. A lot of those homes that were foreclosed on during the 2008 housing crisis were Black households. And so therefore, a lot of us, not only are we disappointed, but we felt cheated. We felt cheated and we felt undermined by somebody like a Barack Obama. And so this is why a lot of us now are saying what Dr. Ruha Benjamin said, a blackface at a high place is not going to save you. And so we're looking at people like Obama, Kamala Harris, Jim Clyburn,
they are not our friends.
Frost. We're looking at all of these people who are in Congress who share the same amount of melanin as me. And we're going, you know what? You're not actually fighting for us. So therefore, we're going to go outside the system. We're going to go do mutual aid. We're going to do building door power. We're going to get the things done, the things that you couldn't do, even though you have the institutional power to do it. Because the problem is that they are literally, we'll call them coons, we'll call them whatever.
Well, you can call them that. I can't say that, but I will say I get from Tim Black, not all skin folk are kinfolk.
Exactly. And so because we learned that, because we learned that, especially from people like Obama, is that we're now saying to ourselves, if you can't provide material benefits for us, we're leaving you in the dust. We have no time left for you. And so this is one of the reasons why, and because back in the day, after 2008, if you were a Black person, you dare not say anything against Saint Obama, right? Because the boomers and some of the Gen X will be like, God, how dare you? Now it is a lot more safer to criticize Obama because even Black boomers and Black Gen Xers are going, well, yeah, he kind of screwed us. And so now it's easier now for us to say, because hindsight is 2020. But we're looking at the people who are, who are new, the Jasmine Crockett's, right?
We've had her on a few times. Actually, we had her on for the first time when she was in the Texas legislature and had organized a walkout based on that. And it was exciting. Like she was leading a walkout on, I forget, it was some anti-choice legislation, some stuff. And she was causing good trouble. And so that was the first time we had her on. And then she ran for Congress and we've had her on a couple of times since. And now, of course, she won't respond. Now, of course, she won't respond to text.
Mm-hmm. I got a mind right.
Are you in Maxwell's district?
I live in his district. Yeah, he's my congressman.
Yeah, he's definitely, look, it's a better thing than what we've got down here, but it's still not good.
Yeah. And a lot of one of the groups that's the most disappointed with him is the Florida-Palestine Network. Yeah. Students for Justice in Palestine, they are very disappointed with him. And so
Well, he signed the money over eventually, right? Like he's one of the ones that eventually signed over the money. He hasn't really taken a stand. So, you know, I haven't heard him say shit about Palestine.
I mention this all the time, and I mentioned this regarding Thomas Massey. I said the reason why Thomas Massey is able to conduct business the way that he does is because he's basically a certified genius. He's from MIT, chemical engineer. His entire property that he owns is off of clean, renewable energy. The guy doesn't need Congress.
Right. He doesn't need the job.
Somebody like Maxwell, who we know personally, gets thrust into this position.
He's a nice enough kid, but yeah.
But you take somebody who is a community organizer who gets thrust in there with the support of David Hogue and his network. You know, you're talking about an impressionable kid who's maybe making 30, 40,000 a year. If he was even making that amount, you put him in there like Alex and making 175,000 a year.
Like the life.
Benefits, universal health care, a man about time, gets put on stage as a feature at Coachella. I'm telling you, it's things like this that hook you. And they don't even necessarily need to say anything. They basically just dangle it and say, well, you do understand that if you get out of line, you know, this stuff, it all goes away. And so for them, they figure out a way to rationalize it. We have to get past that.
Yeah. They try to do that to Christian Smalls, right? Organizer for the Amazon Labor Union.
Yep.
They tried to do it. And he didn't take the bait at all. He was like, yeah, right. Okay. I see exactly what you guys are doing. Oh, get to shake hands with Joe Biden. Okay. Get to, you know, meet people like Zendaya and all that. And he's like, yeah, that's nice. All right. I'm off to Cuba. All right. I'm going to go there and I'm going to check out the people over there. And now they're not paying him any attention at all because he decided that he wasn't going to go the direction that they wanted him to go. And so now, is he being invited to these places? Nope. No. Because he decided to stick to his principles.
He didn't get his mind right. He got his mind correct because he knows what the deal is. And for those that are out there like Christian Smalls, who has been a guest on our podcast, we appreciate him as much as anybody who's in this movement.
He's the reason we no longer have a website if anybody's interested. Not really.
That's true.
I was getting threatened. Jay, this is ridiculous, by Reuters. Reuters was going to sue us for the copyright infringement for a picture, even though we took that one down, like, and after they were still coming after us. I ended up shutting down the whole website. And the picture in particular that they didn't like, because we had this thing where all our guests, we would put their picture up and say the change maker of the week, whatever. And we had this picture of Christian. That of all the guests, of all the people, Reuters owned that picture. And I said to him, like, do you realize that Christian Smalls would not want like that this is some shit that you're doing? So I shut down my website because I just wasn't wanting to deal with Reuters coming after me.
We had some law firm in LA that was threatening us, and
it was about the picture that we had up of Chris, like as if he would care.
But remember, guys, and that's why these conversations are so important. They know we're a threat. If we weren't, they wouldn't care. Just as we said on the last show with Jerry Seinfeld. Jerry Seinfeld would not, he is a billionaire who hates everybody. If he didn't care.
And it's mutual.
He would never react to somebody telling him to go fuck himself for supporting Israel. But clearly he's bothered by it. And clearly all of the powers that be are bothered by us. Our channel is still suppressed. I have no doubt that RBN's channel is suppressed. We have to do what we have to do to work together collectively to get that message out there. Jay, final thoughts before you go. Thank you so much for joining us this evening.
Thank you. And you stayed for a while. Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah. So final thoughts are, look, I tell people this because everybody is like, okay, well, we got to move outside of, you know, the duopoly. I always put do mutual aid, build dual power as the first and main thing that you do, right? That is what you need to do. Even look, grab a friend, you two get together. I don't care if you feed or clothe one person. You help one more person than you did yesterday. And then build upon that. Do more for your community that way. And then if you do feel like you need to do something electorally, focus on ballot initiatives. Florida is a ballot initiative state. If you live in a ballot initiative state, focus on those. Focus on local politics. your city council, county commissioners, things like that, because they have a direct impact on your daily lives. And if you're going to do any type of electoral politics, go independent or third party. Leave the duopoly in the dustbin of history where it belongs. But ultimately, your primary and main focus needs to be mutual aid, mutual aid, mutual aid. Because the thing is that we can actually help ourselves better than any one of these politicians can. And continue to do that, and also support independent media. I see real independent media, not this legacy left people who are basically corporate media with an independent veneer, and we know who they are.
Oh,
right?
we know who they are.
Oh, don't worry. I'm going to get a hold of that sniveling little fuck up in Boston soon enough. He's, you know, Mr. Pac-Man's days.
Oh, for God's sake. Peter's obsessed with this, but anyway.
Oh, I've got, yeah, like, I don't want to pick on, you know, the typical Zionist, you know, fruities like.
Oh, no. Let Jay finish. You're off a Pac-Man tangent.
Well, I can't help it. I want to.
Pac-Man.
I don't like David Pac-Man. Okay, just putting that out there.
I understand. I feel that way about some people too.
I know there's people that are definitely just tools of capital, and that's all they are ever served to do. Wow. And those, unfortunately, are the people that, because they're tools of capital, get the biggest platforms.
You will come back.
Algorithm. Yes.
You will come back again, and we are obviously happy to join you and Sabby and whomever.
Anytime.
Well.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And I can't wait to have you guys on my channel too. And, you know, we got to do that cross-pollination. We got to be like busy little bees, you know what I'm saying?
Say it's cross-pollination, yes.
Yeah.
There isn't a lot of hope in Florida, but at least we got each other, so we got to fight as best we can.
Of course. And by the way, guys, if you guys have not already, go ahead and make sure to hit that like button for this channel. Make sure you guys subscribe, and make sure you guys contribute to the Patreon, because this is a labor of love for all of us who are in the real independent left media, because we're doing the best we can with what we got. And the problem is that when you're operating within the system that does not like that you're trying to circumvent it, then of course it's going to add huge amount of suppression onto you. So therefore, please make sure to support your independent media. This is a lot of work. And it's also not just a lot of work mentally, but it's also emotional work, because the problem is that we're also experiencing a lot of the collective trauma of what goes on around the world. And then we have to disseminate this information to you too.
Yes.
So, you know,
it's painful.
And props to you and Peter for you guys for doing the work that you're doing. Keep it up, the good work, you know, because it is a labor of love.
Thank you so much. The next time I'm coming to Orlando, I'll hit you up. We'll meet at Gideon's. Get a cookie.
We'll get some tea. We'll get some coffee. Whatever.
Yeah.
No big whoop. We'll do it up.
Appreciate you, brother. Thank you for all you do.
Thank you so very much, guys. Take care.
That was a great conversation. As I'm sure.
Lovely.
Yes.
He was lovely.
And as we like to say, we are a small but mighty channel, and we are still growing. Jen, we are now at, guys, how's this for a positive growth spurt? We are now at 24,404 subscribers. In the last 28 days, we have secured an additional 2,716 new subscribers, including a handful of new YouTube members. But also, if you are so inclined, remember, guys, we always encourage you to go over to our Patreon. You can do that at patreon.com/generational change for as little as $5 a month. You could become a supporter of our small but mighty channel. We've topped out at about 160 live viewers tonight. Obviously, we always like to get to that 200 live viewer mark if we can. Obviously, with the boost.
Please, I never thought we'd be about 50. You know what I mean? It's like you're getting greedy, man.
I'm not getting greedy. I think that once you cross the threshold, people start to recognize that the channel has, you know, some weight, and that's what ultimately allows us to go in a much more profound and strong direction in terms of audience, which is great. And as you guys who have been with us for a long time know, we are not about audience capture. We are about the message. For some reason,
occasional clips that you'll put out for look, it's not about we need to get audience. That's true.
But we are growing.
But the gist of our show is not about getting clicks.
S. Kolachuk, thank you so much for the 5 Canadian A. I am he, as you are me, and we are all together.
That's lovely.
If it makes sense. Now, I don't know if this person is new to our channel. I'm going to guess that they are.
I've seen them.
Because I would think that Lucky Lou, Truth of Life. Thank you so very much for the $111 contribution, which is very substantial.
I'm curious what that number means, if it means anything.
I would be curious if it means something too, but that's not the end of it. Lucky Lou was feeling extra, or Lukey Lou, I thought it was Lucky
Lou. Looky Lou.
Maybe feeling a little lucky or feeling very generous, decided that a $20 super sticker was also necessary, but he may have hit the button twice, because shortly thereafter there was another $20.
Okay, well, if it's an accident, thank you. If it isn't, thank you. But yeah, well,
whatever your motivation is to support our channel, we are extremely grateful for it. If there is any requests that you have of us, I do some voices. I just need
to know, Self-Care Maven, what's the Beatles? What's the Beatles? Does the 111 have to do with the Beatles? Is that what you're saying?
I could do the burning. I don't know if maybe somebody was suggesting that. Our great friend,
it's
Teresa,
an angel number. Okay, it's an angel number. Okay. Thank
Teresa,
you.
Thank you so much for the gifted 5 generational change memberships. That is very sweet of you to do. Teresa has been with us for years.
Oh, the lyric. It's the Beatles. What song? Tell me what song, because I knew it. Sorry, continue. I'm getting educated. It was that was a Beatles lyric that somebody put up. I should know that of all things. And I should definitely know what album. I would also happen to, it's got to be a John song. Definitely sounds like a John song.
Definitely John. Definitely a John song. Brett Boyle, another one of our OGs. Thank you so much for the Canadian A, $5. Zionists manufacture anti-Semitism in order to make their Israel project necessary and further that Israel project agenda. Agreed 1,000%. Roger Meadows, thank you for the $5. It's been a while, brother. Haven't seen you. Hope you're doing well. Speaker Johnson, CD4 in Louisiana medium income is $51K. Put on loop, send to district. You 3 should seriously get together and run a FLCBI for M4A, Medicare for All, public bank and tax reform. That's interesting. Well,
Florida ballot initiative.
Well, yes, but I definitely agree. Single payer is what we should put on the ballot here in Florida. Just
where you don't say that, because if Steve's watching, he'll have a conniption.
Sure. Stolen TPS reports. Thank you so much for becoming a YouTube member.
Thank you.
Very happy to
it's all very helpful, guys. It really is.
S. Jera, thank you as always. This time for the $1.49. Usually it's 99 cents.
$1.49 in the super chat. That's how Jordan used to say. It's so funny a long time ago for anybody who used to watch Jordan back in the day.
Well, remember $1.49. That used to be is that a chicken burrito at Taco Bell? They used to do the commercials, 69, 89, 109.
Peter's not in LA anymore. He's back in the Panhandle. I think Lila's in the chat was asking.
Oh, Lila, I forgot to respond to it because I texted Lila, and then when she texted me, I was already in San Diego. So that's why I forgot to get back to her. I apologize. My trip was very quick. I had very limited time that I was able to fraternize.
And you are not one of his potential property investors, and therefore you did not make the cut of his time.
She does live in a nice part of LA, though.
I'm sure she does, but unless she's wanting to invest in hotels or multifamily units.
No, I never got out. No, I would have if I was going to make it up to Calabasas, which I didn't. I would have reached out because I believe that she's in like Sherman Oaks or something like that, which is on the way.
Wait. Lila lives in Calabasas? You know that's where Jason's from.
No, I think she's in like Sherman Oaks or something like that.
Oh, okay.
So, but close enough on the north side of LA. So I would have, but I never made it there. Cocker Spaniel Wasserman Schultz. Hey, I put that name in there. I didn't do it. It wasn't me. Debbie Wasserman Schultz is Chelsea Clinton at 100 years of age with ramen noodle hair. Yup, I am that individual. Here's a little secret that might floor you guys. Debbie Wasserman Schultz is only 57.
She's less than 5 years older than me.
Willie Bragg, always great to see you guys. Make sure
Willie also has a serious hate on for Debbie Wasserman Schultz, like you do.
Make sure you subscribe to the Willie Bragg Show if you haven't already, guys. Yeah, shame on that person. Debbie Wasserman Schultz is a Republican light for damn sure. No, she's not, Willie. She's not Republican light. She's worse than Republican.
She was on the board of ALEC. She's a Republican.
No, she's worse than Republican. Like, well, she's a Zio-fascist. Like, that's what Debbie is. So Republican light, no, absolutely not. Much, much worse. Roger Meadows, thank you for the $5 again. Black women cling to the Dem party because there's not enough of us black men to go around, and they are too picky, so the party becomes their man like the pastor. This is a much more deep-rooted issue within the black community that Roger Meadows, as a black man, is trying to share with us. Maybe that's the case.
And by the way, shout out to Sabby Sabs. Guys, if you haven't seen that, she, a couple days ago, might have even been yesterday. Guys, you know I'm a pothead. Sabby recently put out...
Are you, Jay?
I am. She did a segment on black women in marriage and why they're not getting married as often. And that is actually true, is one of the things. And I guess I could have figured out the numbers, but one of the things that she talked about was just how many less black men there are. So now whether or not that then is causation as to why they cling to the party like a pastor, maybe, I don't know. But anyway, yeah, Sabby did a really good episode, if you will, on that exact issue.
Progressive Lefty, thank you for the $6.99 Canadian A. People are always shocked when I say Obama's the worst president in history until I explain why. I don't know if he's the worst, but he's certainly a hell of a lot worse than people want to acknowledge, without question. Mark?
Only because, well, for me, it's the worst because you have to look at it proportionate to someone's capability, right? Like, so, you don't expect like a lizard to understand algebra, right? So like when W got in there, I had low expectations, right? Like, so, but when you look at it in proportion to capability, yeah, I do think Obama is the worst. When you look at it in proportion, I do. So
Mark J, thank you for the $2, and we appreciate that you enjoyed the conversation. Progressive Lefty with the $2.79 Canadian A. It's about class, not race. Without question, it is first about class, but there is a lot of other issues that do play a role.
Race is a close second. Race is a close second in terms of how it's used. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Brett Boyle, thank you for the $2 Canadian A. Love this channel, hosts, guests, and discussions. You guys have all been great, and your support really means a lot, to say the least.
Do you have anything else you're going to cover?
Yes, there is one more thing that I would like to cover.
I know, and this really could be a pontificating, but we're gonna allow it because apparently you have something to get off your chest.
So both of us obviously have been big supporters at one time or another of Mr. Springsteen, and he has certainly had a huge impact on my life. He was and always has been for several decades my favorite musician for a lot of reasons.
I've seen him more times than I'd want to admit to, and I was a fan for a long time, and I still think he's great musically, but he's been very disappointing as a human being.
And I think the problem that we have, and we're going to let the clip play because I think you guys are going to get an idea of exactly what the problem is here. There is one of the things that Springsteen was masterful at for many, many years, and I mean many, many years. He came off as a working class hero, and in many ways he was a working class hero, and for many he still is. That's not to say that his impact is still not felt by a lot of people. But for quite some time, and I'm talking for many years now, Bruce Springsteen is not a working class hero anymore. His shtick does not jive. It falls on deaf ears for most. And when you consider the type of audience that shows up at his shows, it should come as no surprise. So his statement against Trump the other night in the UK, it kind of rung very hollow as far as I'm concerned. Here's what he had to say.
Things are happening right now that are altering the very nature of our country's democracy, and they're too important to ignore. So, first I want to thank you for indulging me. But in America, my home, they're persecuting people for their right to free speech and voicing their dissent.
That's a good point.
That's happening now.
That's a valid point. I'm not going to fault him for that.
But Bruce has not said a single word about what's going on in Gaza.
That's why he disappoints me as a human. But this isn't yet. I mean, yeah.
He's referencing it ever so slightly.
No, he's not. He hasn't referenced shit. He's talking about what's happening on campuses and about speeches.
Yes, but what's happening on campuses is that these students are protesting what's going on.
If you don't say why, then it's no. You don't. He doesn't get to claim that he addressed it through like osmosis.
Exactly. Well, what I'm saying is that that's what he's trying to do. He's trying to thread the needle, but
I don't think he is. I think he is one of those fucking libtards that just literally thinks that it all begins and ends with Trump. Trump's the fascist. Trump's the problem. He would have been fine if Kamala was elected. He would have gone back to brunch.
I was going to get to that point.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
I was going to get to that point, but let's continue with what he has to say.
In America, the richest men are taking satisfaction in abandoning the world's poorest children to sickness and death. That's happening now.
Do you think this wouldn't be happening if Kamala was president?
That's my problem. He's just, I feel like saying, sit down, boomer. And I never would have thought in a million, like if you had told my 17-year-old self that I would be thinking like this of Bruce Springsteen, I'd say you were nuts.
And the thing is, what people have to remember is that Bruce became super rich from Born in the USA. And that was 40 years ago. Bruce was still very grounded for at least another 25, 30 years. It was Obama. Obama really, he developed a relationship with Obama and it became personal for him. And he just kind of went along with that shit, which is amazing. But he just changed his entire attitude. And he's never been the same.
Does it bother you that I was at that concert?
No. I mean, if I grew up when you grew up, I have no doubt I would have went to
you know that I saw the Born in the USA concert at the Orange Bowl live.
And if I was old enough, I would have went to the Born in the USA concert at Giant Stadium. So there you go.
In my country, they're taking sadistic pleasure in the pain they inflict on loyal American workers. They're rolling back historic civil rights legislation that led to a more just society. They're abandoning our great allies and siding with dictators against those who are struggling for their freedoms.
See, now that's annoying because right there, that's that Russia, Putin, like fear-mongery Ukraine crap. That's what that is. So seriously, he's one of those that's like hands off NATO now.
Talk about living in a bubble. And Jimmy is right. That is NATO PR if there ever was. NATO should have been dismantled the second the Soviet Union was dismantled almost 35 years ago. And so this talking point that Bruce is throwing out there, point blank, comes from those very people that he likes to hang around with, kind of like when he did that benefit concert for Kamala, and it was him, Kamala, and Obama backstage hamming it up. What do you think these people talk about? They are so disconnected from what regular people care about and need to focus on. He's focused on this shit. He doesn't want to mention the fact that the reason we are in conflict, if you want to call it that, in Ukraine is because Ukraine has trillions upon trillions of dollars in natural resources that the U.S. wants to control. And by trying to get Ukraine into NATO, they figured they can control the resources that way. And Putin said, you're not doing that, and you're not coming up to my doorstep. But even somebody like Bruce Springsteen, makes this type of a statement, you would think he would at least have some semblance of understanding as to what this is about.
And is he in London? Is that where you said he
London.
was?
Oh, yes. He's not even doing this here. He's doing this over there.
Yeah. Well, that makes sense. They're also like, you know, their whole thing is trying to say, we'll handle it without you. We'll take care of it. You want, and what nobody probably is bothered to educate the boss here that the people that he's talking about helping, the poor persecuted people, are actually Nazis. Those are Nazis.
Oh.
That's happening now. They are defunding American universities that won't bow down to their ideological demands. And they are removing residents off American streets without due process of law and deporting them to foreign detention centers and prisons. That's happening now.
Yes.
A majority of our elected representatives have utterly failed to protect the American people from the abuses of an unfit president and a rogue government.
You think Kamala Harris was capable or qualified to run this country? You were out there singing her praises, and I got to tell you, between Donald Trump and Kamala Harris, whether you want to accept it or not, Donald Trump was infinitely more qualified to run this country.
Without a doubt. Without a doubt. And he's ridiculous.
And as we said to Clint Russell, as we say now, if there's one thing we can say about Trump versus Kamala, at least with Trump, there are issues that the buck will stop with him. With Kamala Harris, everything would have been predetermined in terms of what she would say.
It would be the same thing. We would just not be seeing, she wouldn't reveal it as well as Trump does. I'm telling you, he's the most honest liar ever. I'm embarrassed about that. Like, I'm embarrassed for Bruce. Like, he just looks so pitiful to me. And by the way, you're talking to people in a country that is gung-ho pro-war, whether we're with them or not. And I don't mean the people, not the people, but it's like he's talking to, like, in the UK as if somehow they're just so ideologically separate from us. No, they are us. They're a vassal state, basically, to some extent of us. In terms of their leadership, their government. It's not any better.
The UK is really the one place in Europe that has a sizable Zionist population.
Oh, it's terrible. I mean, they have I'm just saying, of all the stuff that's happening here is to a lesser extent in terms of free speech is also happening there because of the same things. Right. So that's what I'm saying. Like, you're talking to people as if you live in some crazy, horrible, they're in that same world. You know,
somebody just, Harashnu had brought up Roger Waters. And, this is a great example of the difference between somebody like Roger Waters and somebody like Bruce Springsteen. Everybody knows that Roger Waters is an asshole. Everybody knows that Bruce Springsteen is a nice guy. But you know what? I'm with Roger Waters because he is right.
What makes him an asshole? Why is he an asshole? I don't know that he's an asshole. I've not met him.
I've just from what I know. I could be
whatever.
wrong.
I don't care. I've heard Bernie's an asshole. It doesn't matter.
Yes, exactly. It doesn't matter how nice a person is. What matters is, are they right? And Springsteen is speaking from an exceptionally privileged position to be talking about this. Remember, Bruce is a billionaire. He is. So once again, the billionaire class trying to tell us how to live instead of just recognizing the realities of what's going on and being honest. But remember, Bruce likes to hobnob with people that want this message out there. Don't forget that.
They have no concern or idea of what it means to be deeply American. The America I've sung to you about for 50 years is real. And regardless of its many faults, it's a great country with a great people, and we will survive this moment.
What is so great about this country? because you made it. And that thing that Jen is holding is what's great about this country, but that document is being decimated by all sides of corporate power in this country. It is not a Trump thing. It is a broken republic thing. That is why we have lost almost every single legitimate semblance of the Constitution ever since 9/11. And maybe it was inevitable that it was going to happen. But it has accelerated so fast and so hard. And the idea that Bruce is still peddling this idea that it's all the Republicans, that's the sin. That is the original sin.
It has to be really hard for you.
I don't, much like you don't look at Jerry Seinfeld the same, I don't look at Bruce Springsteen the same.
But the difference is that Jerry Seinfeld was never my hero.
Sure. And I don't think Bruce is anywhere near the level, obviously, of Seinfeld in that regard. But
it would be like if it were Dolly. Then I'd be like, if it were Dolly, then...
It's also the fact that Bruce, it's not like Bruce was always like this. He evolved into this. And I do think Obama had a huge impact. I think he likes having... He was legitimately friends with the president of the United States for 8 years, was invited to his house, taken out on rides. They did a podcast together. I mean, he awarded him the Presidential Medal of Freedom, did the event at the Kennedy Center Honors. It's all this stuff. Even somebody like Bruce, at his age and everything he's done, still gets sucked into that world. So it's easy to see why we talk about somebody like Jay's representative, Maxwell Frost, coming from a very small level and getting in there. Now you're talking about somebody who at one time, Bruce Springsteen was the biggest rock star musician in the world. He was right there with Michael Jackson and Prince. No one was bigger than him. So he's been to the top of the mountain. And even to this day, he still pretends like he doesn't get it. That is incredibly inappropriate and irresponsible on his part.
Now I have hope because I believe in the truth of what the great American writer James Baldwin said. He said, in this world, there isn't as much humanity as one would like, but there's enough.
He just quoted James Baldwin. Hold on a second. That's crazy. He quoted James Baldwin. James Baldwin, what was the antithesis of the liberal, elite, classist bullshit that he is sitting here promoting. The fact that he quoted James Baldwin just blows me away. Like, are you frigging kidding me? James Baldwin would have been holding a Palestinian flag screaming "Free Palestine." Like, that's just ridiculous that that's who he quoted of all. Oh my God. I'm embarrassed for him.
1, 2.
I'm sad.
The song that Bruce was giving that interlude into is called City of Ruins, which is about Asbury Park, New Jersey. Now, when I grew up about 20 minutes away from Asbury Park, for many years, especially in the 80s and a significant portion of the 90s, Asbury Park was a run-down community. It was once a thriving shore community, particularly in the 50s and 60s. But during the Reagan 80s and into the Clinton 90s, it was a dangerous, dirty, dormant community. But then the LGBTQ community moved into Asbury Park and completely changed it. It had a renaissance, and it's been thriving ever since. But the irony of Bruce singing about My City of Ruins, which became a high mark in terms of what he was singing about on the Rising Tour in lieu of 9/11. Our country is in ruins, and it stays that way because of deliberate misinformation that is thrown out there to the general public. What Bernie and many others have been trying to convey is this idea that if we only got rid of this side, it would solve the problem. It isn't going to solve the problem. And Bruce is going right along with it. And to me, it's irresponsible and unacceptable that he thinks that he can put that message out there and thinks that it's just not going to be a big deal.
Can you imagine if Bruce Springsteen got up there and started saying things like Free Palestine with his platform? Can you imagine if Bruce Springsteen was actually, because yeah, we've got the pro-Palestine segment, but it's not usually the bigger names, right? It isn't. It's the people that have integrity, which is probably why they never got to that level in the first place, like real thespians, people that actually have integrity. But can you imagine if he stood there instead of giving that ridiculous bullshit NATO cheerleading speech, if he actually got up and said, Israel's committing a genocide, we need to free Palestine?
Yeah.
What that would have had, what that impact could be. And instead, his privileged fucking ass is standing there being a NATO puppet. I'm just disgusted. I'm so disgusted. I can't, like, the fact that that's Springsteen now, like it taints his music to me too. And I hate saying that.
Then I was in, thank you, Progressive Lefty, for the $6.99 Canadian A. Then I was in the Young Communist League in the 80s. Bruce was considered a working class hero. $1 billion changes you. Well, he was super rich for many years, and it didn't change him. Like I said, for whatever reason, he got caught up.
He's a boomer. He's a boomer.
Sure acts like it now. And as Kolachuk, who takes us home with the 2 Canadian A, Beatles, I Am the Walrus. I am the walrus.
Shut up, Donnie. You're out of your element.
I am the walrus. And people say that I look like Buscemi, so... Yeah. Is it Buscemi or Buscemi? Which one is it, Jim?
You're asking me. I'm like the gringa from the universe. Like, I'm the biggest gringa. I'm not the person to ask about stuff like that.
You better believe Angelina Jolie is pro-Palestine. She's somebody with zero fucks to give.
Yeah, she's zero fucks to give. And we have Miss Rachel now. And if Mr. Rogers was alive, he'd say something about Palestine.
The only thing I disagree with here, Ron McKinnon, and great to see you, always a top contributor in the comments. Millionaire Springsteen, no. Billionaire Springsteen became what he sang about in The River. And The River, in my opinion, is one of his 10 best songs. Now all of them things that seem so important, they vanish right into the air. Now I just act like I don't remember. And Mary acts like she don't care. Because we went down to the river. And into that river we dive. And that is...
He's no longer that person.
He is not that person.
No. No.
Do you know where Bruce debuted The River? He debuted it at the No Nukes tour in New York City at Madison Square Garden in 1979. You better believe you wouldn't catch his ass singing at one of those concerts today.
Oh, no. He just got on the stage and read NATO talking points. So I'm going to say that the, anti-nuke sentiment has left him a long time ago.
Yeah. And he was the headliner of that concert. You guys go back and check that one out. Go back and check out the No Nukes concert with Jackson Brown and a slew of other, noted names, but Bruce was the headline. And he obviously is not that guy anymore. And it hurts.
That's what I mean. That's what I mean. It's got to be hard for you. That sucks. Like, if it were Dolly, I'd be beside myself.
I spoke to Bruce on the phone once a number of years ago. I told Jen about it. And it was a great conversation. It was only for a few minutes, but he took the time to talk to me. And he asked me, what was my favorite album and what had the greatest impact. And I told him, Darkness on the Edge of Town is, and I think Darkness on the Edge of Town tells his story better than anything else, because he made Born to Run and it was a great success. And he, of course, wanted his autonomy to make his own music and do his own thing without having the corporate constraints that would have come with sticking with Mike Appel and Columbia Records. And he decided to go into arbitration for 3 years. It cost him $1 million. And this is in 1976, 77. So you can imagine what that was like. And then he makes Darkness on the Edge of Town. And if you haven't heard that album, and I actually have one of the original LPs in vinyl, and my father bought it back when it came out. And I think that's his best work, in my opinion. But
Kathy, I'm sorry. I thought you were done. Go ahead.
No, but that Bruce is long gone. Long gone.
Kathy, when I say boomer, it really isn't ageist as much as it is mindset. Because like my parents technically are boomers, but I wouldn't call them boomers because they're cool and they kind of get it. So like when I say boomer, I'm thinking more just generational mindset. And if you are a boomer age and you're not with that mindset, clearly you must have recognized that some of your peers have gone off the deep end.
We can definitely comment on Miss Rachel on Thursday. But as we've said,
we talked a little bit about Miss Rachel.
Yeah, well, apparently she put out another statement, and the Zionists have been coming at her relentlessly now. But remember, guys, it is a telltale sign that anyone with a real platform that is willing to make a statement. Yeah, see, that's what they do. That's what the Zionazis do.
Can I tell you though, here's the beautiful thing about Miss Rachel. And it applies to a lot of people more and more these days, it seems, but she's got fuck you money.
Yeah.
That's the thing. She owns like Sesame Street and Elmo and all this shit now, whatever. She's got fuck you money.
Yeah, you're fucking with the wrong
at that level. Like once you're at that,
you're fucking with the wrong person now. And good. Like that.
Extremely popular, and not just in this country. Like she is beloved.
Yeah, beloved. On Thursday, we will have an old Democratic Party friend.
Don't say old.
Guest.
I'm sure that she doesn't want to be referred to as old. She's younger than me.
No, I don't mean old in that sense. I mean like she's an OG. That's what I meant.
Oh, hold on. AM, you're new here. That Debbie, it's a friend of ours. We're not exactly sure who, but it's somebody that's a friend, and they're just playing, and they're just saying like they're just playing with us. You have to understand that it's not anyone that's really mean.
Yeah, the irony of Blinded by the Light, and everyone thinks it was Manfred Mann. No, this is Bruce's song, and you'd be surprised, guys, how many songs. Patti Smith's most famous song, Because the Night, that's Springsteen. He gave her that song. The Pointer Sisters, he gave them Fire, which was one of their biggest hits. He actually had a duet with Donna Summer that of all the people in the frickin' world, Quincy Jones did not want her associating with Springsteen and doing a duet. Who the hell knows what that was about? And that was Protection. If you've never heard that duet, there is a recording out there of it. It's great.
Wait, you're saying he did a duet with Donna Summer?
Yeah, but Quincy Jones would not allow it to be released.
Interesting.
So it was an unreleased single that they did to. Yeah, you should hear.
Why?
Politics, I'm sure. Quincy Jones was also, I'm not a fan of Quincy Jones. I have very strong opinions about him.
I couldn't care less about Quincy Jones, but I am a big fan of Donna Summer.
Donna Summer's great, absolutely.
The queen of disco. Oh, she was so smoking.
But of course, Quincy Jones is more comfortable with her associating with Zionist queen Barbara Streisand, but not with Bruce Springsteen.
Okay, and if you want, let me tell you something though. No More Tears is one of the greatest songs, greatest duets. It's a spectacular piece. So and I don't care about the Zio thing. Let me tell you something. Just stop fucking around. Just stop messing with Barbara. Just leave her.
Excuse me. You get on my ass about Springsteen.
But I'm not like some big Barbara fan. I just recognize that she is amazing. And by the way, the duet with Donna Summer
I don't agree. I don't agree. Not only that, but Barbara Streisand is a cunt, so she should be treated accordingly. And as far as I'm concerned, that's without her even being a Zionazi, which she is. And she's been one for a long fucking time. Apparently, she was doing stuff for Israel back in the 70s.
So was I.
Well, you got your mind correct.
Yes, but I'm just saying, look, two things can be true.
I see.
Right. And I refuse, like, for the love of Pink Jesus, to let Barbara's music get too tainted in my mind, because as it is, there's too many things that I can no longer enjoy. So I just don't want to go there with that. Like, that is one. Now, if we were talking about, you know, something like Weinstein, Cosby, those kinds of things, fine. But I cannot just.
The only thing that I can say is that I was never a fan of Israel. They never let me perform in front of their fans. But Barbara Streisand, she was always about the, you know, going to Israel. You know what I was all about? It was about singing the song. So yeah.
Oh, you have to accept the C word here. We're good with it. We'll say cunt. Also, by the way,
See, the difference is that you can call me an asshole and I don't give a shit.
No, the C word is just, it's a word. It's just a word. It has whatever meaning you attach to it.
Correct.
It's a word.
We have to get past this idea that we can't use certain language. No, actually, Wanker, I was doing Michael Jackson. Yeah, see, BS got it. He understood.
Yeah, and by the way, if the concept of Michael Jackson is even anywhere in the air, Peter will use that as an opportunity to do that, especially if we're driving. He loves to do that.
I told you as a child. Have you been up my wishing tree?
Oh, good God.
To think and dream. And now I want to show you my wishing tree. Shamona. We can laugh and giggle and scream. Come on. How can you not laugh at it? I mean, that's why South Park.
Oh, Michael
That's what makes it great. And Prince is a hell of a talent. No, that's ignorant. It's ignorant. It's I told you I was a child. They just didn't want to believe it. And that's why, guys, at the end of the day, we just have to have fun. Because life is miserable enough to begin with.
You know what? Here's the thing. It's really, everything is nuance and everything is context. And I do think that the intent is what matters the most, and that gets lost, right? Like, we can't be so focused on the words, like, especially with people that are really in things for the right reasons. I don't ever want to hurt anybody's feelings in terms of like what their identity or who they are, but some stuff is kind of just funny.
Zainab, here's what I will tell you.
That's not anywhere. Cunt is not that. First of all, in certain places, like as far as like in the UK, for example, cunt is just, it's like dick or asshole there. That is much more, it is, because there's no racial, ethno-cultural connotation. It's completely behavior-based.
What I would also
behavior-based.
So here's what I will tell you. When it's all said and done, people are going to say what they're going to say, and everything is within context. And when it comes to somebody like Barbara Streisand, she is a notorious, nasty piece of you-know-what when it comes to people who work in the service industry. She's a snapper. She's a poor tipper. She's
a cunt.
High demands. Now, as an objective person, can I say that Barbara Streisand is talented? Sure. It doesn't mean that I like her. It doesn't mean that I think anything of her. There are people that are obsessed with Babs. They love her.
I am not one of those people. Yeah. I just recognize the brilliance.
No, but she's got like a kind of like Barry Manilow. You know, the people that are devoted to certain musicians doesn't make a lot of sense to certain people, but to the fans of that particular person.
You mean the Fanalos? That's what they call them, Fanalos.
Kenny Rogers has a following that's like that.
Okay. Well, now you're talking about like he's a legend. I mean, come on.
Well, there you go. But I'm just saying that is.
You know who else has a big following like that?
Bruce Springsteen.
Well, maybe, but you know who? Dolly Parton. I haven't heard of Bruce Wood. Have you heard of Bruce Wood?
I definitely agree with Victoria on that one. 100%.
It's different. It's different. But yeah, both of those people are in my top 5.
So on Thursday, we will have Nomiki Konst. She will be a guest, and she is going to give us some inside baseball on what exactly went down with the DNC and the removal of David Hogue as the vice chair. It clearly has layers to it, as anything would, but it also speaks to the disintegration of the party. We had a Bernie clip that I was thinking of playing. We'll save that for Thursday. There was an Andrew Cuomo clip I was thinking of playing as well, but I'm going to save that one.
You make him sound like he's like trying. You make him sound like he's
constipated and he's
like he's selling something. Like he's selling something on an infomercial.
But that's what he sounds like. That is what he sounds like. You're not skipping shit, progressive lefty. Don't even think about it.
You'll be here and you'll like it.
What the fuck? All of you guys, you better be coming on board. What do you think? We're here to kiss Nomiki's ass? No, we're here to chat. You think we're here? We're going to tell her.
We can talk to all kinds of different people. It's always interesting conversation. It doesn't mean that we agree with them. It doesn't mean that we're whatever, but they might have something very interesting to say.
And if you guys want me to reference my doppelganger, you know what this is? The sound of the world's tiniest violin playing a tune. I don't tip. Actually, I do tip. But if you want to see Buscemi at his best, watch the opening scene, and it's on YouTube, the opening scene from Reservoir Dogs.
Reservoir Dogs is the best.
When he talks about why he doesn't tip when he goes to a restaurant.
Okay, so somebody had asked a while ago about when we're doing our brand switch.
Ouch. Ouch. When even Debbie is trying to score points off of Nomiki. Oh, that's awful. Jen, that's on you, baby. That's on you.
Well, I will. I'm gonna definitely.
I'm not saying shit. You're gonna bring it up.
I'm gonna ask her. I'm gonna ask her. I'll have to. It'll be like chit chat. But no, guys, when we have people on, it isn't necessarily people we always agree with. It's people that have something interesting to say, and that's that. That's what we try to do here. We try to have
Lisa, it's your birthday.
We try to have intelligent.
Happy birthday, Lisa.
I'm kind of sitting here and talking about intelligent discourse, and you're acting like special.
I think we have to have, like I said, I like to have fun, and what makes our show unique is that we're not
ridiculous.
We're not.
So listen, the rebrand, you got me distracted. As of right now, it's not like a hard, I think it's a soft thing, is June 23rd. And that assumes that I don't end up getting detained and held up in customs the day before and having to self-deport myself somewhere else.
Yeah, well, make sure that doesn't happen. But what I will say is you guys are definitely going to want to tune in, because our first guest as part of our rebrand is going to be one of our personal heroes in the Israel-Palestine saga.
Yes, we will be launching Revolutionary Change with
Norman Finkelstein. So make sure you guys tune in. That is a month from now, but definitely want to give you a heads up because it's going to be a big deal. It's going to be huge.
And Jen's going to be gone for a while.
Yes, Jen's going away for 3 weeks, but we'll have some great guests to co-host with.
I'm not leaving yet, but yeah, I'll be gone for 3 weeks. And then that 23rd, if all things go well, that first show back, that will be the launch of Revolutionary Change. That's June 23rd.
Monday, June 23rd, guys. Mark that calendar.
And
Monday,
if I'm somewhere else, if I'm stuck in Ireland, so be it.
Hopefully that will not happen.
Well, I will say this was promising because Jacob Berger, he's back in New York now. Yep. And he came back and didn't mention having any sort of hold up or problem. And his platform is infinitely bigger than mine. So if they were going to hold up somebody coming in to the country, and he was coming in from you know, like much more, you know, questionable immigration type places. He was coming in from like Malta right now, of all places, or wherever, right? I'm coming in from Ireland. Why would they even be flagging anybody coming in from Ireland?
I don't know if you're trying to cause trouble, but we'll
I'm
see.
not getting a burner phone. I'm living my life. If it happens, it happens. My husband already knows who to call if I get stuck at the airport and it's some sort of detention situation.
That's why
I assure you I won't speak. I understand. I'm an attorney. You shut the fuck up. Lawyer.
Spoken like a true potty mouth.
You shut the fuck. There was a clip.
Shut the fuck up, Donnie.
There was a clip that goes around from like the Lawyers Guild or whatever it is. And I want to say, I think like, was it Lee Camp was showing it? It was really friggin' funny. And it's that lawyers basically saying the key thing you have to know is just shut the fuck up. You get arrested, you get detained, you shut the fuck up. You say nothing. But I could be stuck somewhere for hours sitting there silently. Hopefully they let me go to the bathroom if I have to go to the bathroom.
All of you guys, Kathy Polino, Sid Nada, Progressive Lefty, Self-Care Maven, Public.
Oh, yeah. Lee had it on today. Guys, go watch that. Go watch Lee's. He does it funny. It's really funny.
Zainab, Irene, Wanker Tanker, Anton, Skywalk Price, Shunt Guy, Craig Hayden, Jimmy Tessel, all of you guys, including Debbie. We appreciate you adding to the algorithm. Ron McKinnon, Brown Bunny, all of you guys. I know Casey Mattingly,
Wanka
Tanka, Brett Boyle. We're calling out everybody. Everybody we can.
Debbie's hissing at you. Look, she's hissing.
Remember any of the people that end up at the events that are trying to protest against the whether against genocide or anything? You ever hear the shit lib old bags when they go
right? But who is it? Is it Sam? Who is it?
It's like BS, Harbinger, all of you guys. Jay Bogues. We do not have Tammy Elisa, Jason R, Kolachuk. We do not have a successful show without Claire, without a great foundation of support. And you guys are the reason that we are where we are. We are closing in, shockingly, on 25,000 subscribers at a pace in which I didn't think was coming. And we're also in a situation where we are now able to raise some capital, where we're able to potentially deploy it into different areas like mutual aid. And suggestions are always welcome. So with that said, smash that like button, share, subscribe, do all those things we ask you to do. We appreciate you all. We love you all. We will see you Thursday.
And free Palestine.